Emma Carter's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the diner door handle. At 7 years old, she'd already learned that adults lie when they say they'll protect you. The police had turned her away twice. The school principal hung up on her mother. And the man in the black car was getting bolder yesterday. He'd rolled down his window and smiled at her. So now she stood in front of 5 leather-clad bikers at 5:47 a.m., her purple backpack hanging off one small shoulder, and said the words that would change everything. "I need you to walk me to school. The bad people are trying to hurt me and nobody else will help." Before we dive into Emma's story, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because what happens next will restore your faith in humanity. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Trust me, you'll want to follow this journey to the very end. The worst part about being 7 years old and terrified wasn't the fear itself. It was knowing that the people who were supposed to care didn't believe you. Emma had stopped sleeping 3 weeks ago. Not completely, but enough that her mother, Sarah, noticed the dark circles, the way her daughter flinched at sudden sounds, how she'd started checking the windows every 5 minutes. Sarah worked double shifts at Millbrook General Hospital because that's what single mothers did in small Pennsylvania towns, where the cost of living kept climbing, but the pay cases stayed the same. She'd been working the night rotation when it started. "Mom, there's a car," Emma had said one Tuesday morning, her voice small. Sarah was rushing late for her shift coffee in one hand and car keys in the other. "What car, honey?" "A black one. It follows me to school." Emma, lots of people drive black cars. But it wasn't just any black car. It was a 2019 Dodge Charger with tinted windows and a dented front bumper. Emma had memorized every detail because when you're 7 and someone's hunting you, you notice everything. The first time she thought maybe it was a coincidence. The car had been idling at the corner of Maple and 3rd when she walked to school. The second time it followed her for 3 blocks, crawling along at walking speed. The third time the window rolled down. "Hey there, sweetheart," the driver said. He was maybe 19 or 20 with greasy hair and a smile that made Emma's stomach hurt. "You walk to school all by yourself." Emma ran. She ran so fast her backpack bounced against her spine hard enough to bruise. She ran until her lungs burned and her vision blurred and she couldn't run anymore. When she finally made it to Lincoln Elementary, she was crying so hard she couldn't catch her breath. Mrs. Patterson, the school secretary, handed her a tissue. "Did you forget your homework again?" "There's a man," Emma gasped. "In a black car. He talks to me. He follows me." Mrs. Patterson's expression shifted, but not the way Emma hoped. It was the look adults got when they thought you were being dramatic. "Oh, honey, I'm sure he's just a parent dropping off his own child. You know we have a lot of families in this neighborhood." "He doesn't have a child. He just watches me." "I'll make a note of it," Mrs. Patterson said, which was adult speak for, "I'm not going to do anything." Emma told her teacher, Mr. Reynolds, during morning circle time. He nodded seriously and said they'd discuss it later. Later never came. She told the lunch monitor when the black car appeared outside the cafeteria windows during second period. The lunch monitor suggested Emma was spending too much time on screens and maybe needed to learn the difference between TV shows and real life. "I know what's real," Emma whispered, but nobody heard her. Sarah heard her, though. That night when Emma finally broke down and sobbed into her mother's chest, Sarah heard every word, and Sarah believed her. "We're going to the police," Sarah said, her jaw set in that way that meant she was done asking nicely. "Right now." The Millbrook Police Department operated out of a squat brick building on Main Street that smelled like burnt coffee and disappointment. Officer Dale Kramer had been with the department for 14 years, which meant he'd stopped caring somewhere around year 3. "So, your daughter says a man in a car talked to her," Kramer said, not looking up from his computer screen. "He's stalking her," Sarah corrected. "He follows her to school. He's done it multiple times." "Did he threaten her?" He asked her if she walks alone. "That's not a threat, ma'am." Sarah's hands clenched on the desk. "What would you call it then?" "I'd call it a question." Kramer finally looked up, his expression somewhere between bored and annoyed. "Look, kids have active imaginations. Maybe she saw a black car a couple times and—" "She gave me the license plate number," Sarah interrupted. "She memorized it because she's terrified." "You have the plate." Sarah pulled out the crumpled napkin where Emma had carefully written the numbers and letters in her neat second-grade handwriting. Kramer glanced at it, typed something into his computer, and his expression changed slightly. "You sure about this number?" "My daughter is 7 and she's scared to leave the house. Yes, I'm sure." Kramer stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he closed it. "Ma'am, I can't help you." "What do you mean you can't?" "I mean there's nothing to investigate. No crime has been committed. If something happens, come back and file a report." "If something happens?" Sarah's voice rose. "You want me to wait until my daughter is assaulted before you'll do anything?" "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to lower your voice." "Tell me whose car it is," Sarah demanded. "The plate came back to someone, didn't it?" "I can't release that information." "Then call them. Warn them to stay away from my daughter." Kramer stood up, which was the universal signal that the conversation was over. "Have a good evening, ma'am. Lock your doors, keep your kid close, and everything will be fine." Everything was not fine. The next morning, the black car was parked directly across from their apartment. Emma saw it from her bedroom window and refused to leave her room. Sarah called in sick to work, losing a shift she desperately needed, and spent the morning on the phone. She called the principal, Harold Hricks, who'd been at Lincoln Elementary for 19 years. "Mrs. Carter, I understand your concerns," Principal Hricks said in that smooth voice he used for difficult parents. "But we can't respond to every instance of a parent feeling anxious." "I'm not anxious. I'm telling you my daughter is being stalked." "Those are very serious accusations." "I know what they are. I'm a nurse, Mr. Hricks. I know the statistics on child predators. I know how this starts. And I know the families in this community." His voice cooled. "I'm sure whatever Emma saw, there's a reasonable explanation. Children often misinterpret adult behavior. The police ran the plates. They won't tell me whose car it is, but something changed when they saw the name." "Who is it?" The pause stretched too long. "I really can't speculate on." "It's someone you know, isn't it?" Sarah's blood ran cold. "It's someone connected. That's why nobody will help us." "Mrs. Carter, I think you're letting your imagination run away with you. I suggest you focus on your daughter's education and let the authorities handle security matters." "The authorities won't handle anything." "Then perhaps," Principal Hricks said slowly, "there's nothing to handle. Good day, Mrs. Carter." The dial tone felt like a door slamming shut. Sarah tried the superintendent's office. She got voicemail. She tried the local news station. They asked if she had video evidence. She didn't. She tried a lawyer who told her that without an actual crime, there was no case. She tried the mayor's office and got transferred 4 times before someone hung up on her. Meanwhile, Emma stopped being a child. She stopped playing, stopped laughing, stopped drawing the elaborate pictures of horses and rainbows that used to cover their refrigerator. She moved through the apartment like a ghost, jumping at every sound, watching the windows with eyes too old for her face. The bullying at school got worse too, as if the other kids could smell fear. 3 boys from the 4th grade, Tyler Mason and Brett, had decided Emma was an easy target. They tripped her in the hallway, stole her lunch, called her crybaby and scaredy cat, and worse things that Sarah only heard about in whispers from other concerned mothers who wouldn't go on record. "Why don't you tell your car boyfriend to protect you?" Tyler taunted one afternoon, loud enough for the whole playground to hear. Emma tried to walk away. Mason blocked her path. "I heard she makes up stories for attention," Brett added. "My dad says her mom's crazy." "My mom's not crazy," Emma said quietly. "Then why does she keep calling the police on people who don't exist?" Emma looked around for a teacher, a monitor, any adult. Mr. Reynolds was 20 feet away, looking directly at the scene. He turned around. That night, Emma heard her mother crying through the wall. Sarah thought her daughter was asleep, but Emma lay rigid in her bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the broken sounds of a parent who'd tried everything and failed. At 5:15 a.m., while Sarah slept the exhausted sleep of the defeated, Emma made a decision. She'd seen them 3 weeks ago before everything got bad. She'd been walking home from the library with her mother when they passed Rosie's diner. 5 men in leather vests sat at a table by the window, and Emma had instinctively moved closer to Sarah. Bikers, the kind of men her mother had always told her to avoid. But then something happened that Emma couldn't forget. An elderly woman, Mrs. Chen from the pharmacy, had dropped her grocery bags in the parking lot. Cans rolled everywhere, oranges scattered across the pavement. The bikers were out of their seats before the oranges stopped rolling. The biggest one, a man with gray in his beard and arms covered in tattoos, knelt down and started gathering the oranges like they were made of glass. Another helped Mrs. Chen to her feet, while a third collected the cans. They loaded everything into her car, made sure she was steady, and waited until she drove away safely. "Those are bad men, right, Mommy?" Emma had asked. Sarah had watched the scene with a complicated expression. "I don't know, baby. I really don't know." Now in the pre-dawn darkness, Emma pulled on her purple jacket and grabbed her backpack. She left a note on the kitchen table in careful print. "Gone to get help. Love you, Mommy." The streets of Millbrook were empty at 5:30 a.m. Emma knew the walk to Rosie's diner took 12 minutes because she'd timed it once on a Sunday morning when she couldn't sleep. She walked fast, hands shoved in her pockets, trying not to think about the black car, trying not to think about what her mother would do when she woke up and found the note. Rosie's Diner sat on the corner of Main and 4th, a chrome-sided throwback to the 1950s that served breakfast 24 hours a day. Through the front window, Emma could see them the same men, or at least some of them. The big one with the gray beard was there reading a newspaper and drinking coffee. Emma's courage almost failed her at the door. Her hand touched the handle and froze. What was she doing? These were strangers. Dangerous strangers. The kind of men teachers warned you about. But then she thought about the black car, about Tyler and Mason and Brett, about the way Officer Kramer had looked at her mother like she was wasting his time, about the way every adult had failed her. Emma pushed open the door. The bell above it chimed cheerful and loud in the quiet diner. 5 heads turned. 5 sets of eyes, some brown, some blue. One pair hidden behind dark sunglasses at 5:47 in the morning, locked onto the tiny girl in the purple jacket. The big man with the gray beard slowly folded his newspaper. "Kid, where are your parents?" Emma's voice came out smaller than she'd hoped. "Are you the Hells Angels?" The table went very still. One of the men, younger with a shaved head and a scar across his cheek, glanced toward the kitchen. Another shifted in his seat. The big man studied Emma with eyes that missed nothing. "Who's asking?" "My name is Emma Carter and I'm 7 years old and I need help." The words came out in a rush, terrified she'd lose her nerve. "There's a man in a black car who follows me and talks to me, and I told the police but they won't help. And I told my principal but he won't help. And the boys at school hurt me and nobody believes me. And my mom is trying so hard but nobody will listen. And I remembered you helped that lady with her groceries and I thought maybe you'd help me too." She ran out of breath. Her eyes were burning, but she refused to cry. She'd done enough crying. The big man rose from his seat slowly, like sudden movements might scare her away. He was massive, at least 6'3", and built like the oak tree in Emma's backyard. His leather vest had patches sewn onto it, words and symbols Emma couldn't read. Across the back in large letters, Hells Angels, MC, Millbrook. He knelt down so he was at Emma's eye level. This close she could see his eyes were kind despite the rough face. "My name is Jack Sullivan. People call me Ironside. How'd you get here, Emma?" "I walked." "From where, Mom?" "Parkside Apartments, Building 3. Jack's jaw tightened slightly. That was a 40-minute walk for an adult. "Does your mother know where you are?" Emma shook her head. Fresh tears threatened. "She tried to help me, but nobody would listen, and last night I heard her crying, and I don't want her to be sad anymore." "Okay." Jack's voice stayed calm, steady. "Okay, sweetheart. Let's sit down and talk about this. You hungry Rosie makes the best pancakes in Pennsylvania. I'm not supposed to take food from strangers." "That's smart. You're a smart kid." Jack glanced back at his table. "These are my brothers. That's Tommy, Marcus, Deacon, and Vincent. We're going to help you, but first we need to call your mother so she doesn't worry. Is that okay?" Emma nodded slowly. Jack stood and pulled out his phone, waiting. Emma recited her mother's number from memory. "Mrs. Carter, ma'am. My name is Jack Sullivan. Your daughter Emma is safe. She's here at Rosie's Diner on Main Street." He paused, holding the phone slightly away from his ear as Sarah's voice erupted on the other end. "Yes, ma'am, I understand. We'll stay right here. Please drive safe." He hung up and looked at Emma. "Your mom's on her way. Should be about 8 minutes. While we wait, you want to tell me about this black car." Emma sat in the booth next to Jack. The other bikers gathered around, not crowding, just listening. And for the first time in 3 weeks, Emma told her story to people who believed her. She told them about the Dodge Charger with the dented bumper, about the man with greasy hair, about how he'd asked if she walked alone, about giving the license plate to Officer Kramer and watching his face change when he looked it up. "You remember those numbers?" Jack asked quietly. Emma recited them. She'd repeated them so many times in her head, they were burned into her memory. The biker named Vincent pulled out his phone and typed. 30 seconds later, his face went hard. "Jack, you need to see this." Jack took the phone, looked at the screen, and something dangerous flickered across his features. He handed the phone back without saying anything, but Emma saw his hands curl into fists on the table. "Who is it?" she asked. Jack chose his words carefully. "Someone who should know better. Emma, these boys at school who've been bothering you, you know their names. Tyler Morrison, Mason Hicks, and Brett." "Morrison," Jack repeated slowly. "And Hicks." Vincent swore quietly and immediately apologized. "Sorry, kid, but Jack—" "I know." Jack cut him off. His jaw worked like he was chewing on something bitter. "Emma Tyler's last name is Morrison. Is his dad someone important in town? I think he's on the council. Tyler brags about it. And Mason Hicks any relation to your principal?" Emma's eyes widened. "That's his nephew. I heard them talking once." The bikers exchanged looks that Emma couldn't quite read, but the air in the diner had changed. It felt charged, like right before a thunderstorm. "The car," Tommy said, his voice low. "Jack, tell me it's not—" "It's Travis Morrison," Jack confirmed. "Councilman Robert Morrison's son, 20 years old, 3 complaints filed and dropped in the last 2 years. "Jesus Christ," Marcus breathed. The diner door burst open. Sarah Carter looked like she'd aged 5 years in one night. Her hair was barely brushed. She wore mismatched shoes and her face was pale with terror. Emma slid out of the booth and ran to her mother. Sarah dropped to her knees and grabbed her daughter so tight Emma couldn't breathe. "Don't you ever. I woke up and you were gone. What were you thinking?" "I'm sorry, Mommy," Emma sobbed into Sarah's shoulder. "I just wanted to fix it." Sarah looked up at the 5 bikers standing around her daughter, and Emma felt her mother tense. "Who are you people?" Jack stepped forward, hands visible and non-threatening. "Ma'am, I'm Jack Sullivan. Your daughter came here asking for help. She told us everything, the car, the school, the police, and I want you to know something, we believe her." Sarah's face crumpled. Those 3 words, "we believe her," shattered something that had been holding her together through sheer will. "Nobody else does." "I know." Jack pulled out a chair. "Ma'am, please sit down. We need to talk about what happens next." Sarah should have left. Every instinct told her to grab Emma and run from these dangerous-looking strangers. But she was so tired of fighting alone, so tired of doors closing in her face. She sat. Jack sat across from her. The other bikers gave them space but stayed close. "Mrs. Carter, the car that's been following Emma belongs to Travis Morrison. Do you know that name?" Sarah's face went white. "The councilman's son." "Yes, ma'am. Which explains why Officer Kramer wouldn't help you and why your principal shut you down. The Morrison family runs this town, has for 3 generations. Robert Morrison Sr. is the mayor. Robert Morrison Jr. is head of the council, and Travis is their golden boy who's been getting away with things he shouldn't for years." "How do you know all this?" "Because people talk to us," Jack said simply. "The people nobody else listens to. We hear things. And we've heard about Travis Morrison before." Sarah's hands shook. "What did he do?" Jack glanced at Emma, who was listening to every word. "Nothing we need to discuss right now, but enough that when your daughter walked into this diner asking for help, every man at this table made a decision." "What decision?" "To help her." Jack leaned forward. Mrs. Carter, I was a Marine for 20 years, served 3 tours in Afghanistan. I know what evil looks like, and I know what happens when good people do nothing. Your daughter is being hunted by a predator who's protected by money and power. The system failed her, so we're going to be the system. I don't understand, Sarah whispered. Emma said she needs someone to walk her to school, so that's what we're going to do. Jack's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was describing what to order for breakfast. Starting today, she won't walk alone anymore. You can't. There's 5 of you. There's 5 of us here, Tommy interrupted gently. But we're part of something bigger. The Hells Angels have chapters across the country. We've got brothers in 3 states who've dealt with situations like this before. We know people. We know lawyers, journalists, cops who actually give a damn. And we know how to make noise when we need to. Vincent added, we also know how to make men like Travis Morrison understand that some lines don't get crossed. Sarah looked at her daughter, who was staring at the bikers with something like hope in her eyes. Why would you do this for us? You don't know us. Jack's expression softened. Ma'am, every man at this table has a story. My daughter is 23 now. She's a teacher in Ohio. But when she was 9, a man at her bus stop started talking to her, started getting friendly. My wife noticed Emily getting nervous, asked the right questions, and we found out this man was grooming her. Took us 3 months to get the police to take it seriously, and only because I had military connections who pushed it through. By then he'd moved on to another neighborhood, another little girl. He paused, his voice rough. We saved our daughter, but I've lived with the guilt of not stopping him sooner, of those other kids I didn't protect. Tommy spoke up. My sister was assaulted when she was 15 by her boyfriend's father. Took her 10 years to talk about it. Nobody believed her either. He was a deacon at their church. Marcus nodded. My nephew got bullied so bad he tried to take his own life at 12 years old. Spent 3 weeks in the hospital. Deacon, who hadn't spoken yet, said quietly, my niece disappeared 6 years ago. We still don't know what happened to her. She was 11. Vincent finished. And I've got a daughter Emma's age. If someone was stalking her, and the system did nothing, I'd want someone to step up. So that's what we're doing. The diner was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator behind the counter. Sarah looked at these 5 men, these strangers in leather and tattoos, and saw past the surface to the fathers, brothers, and uncles underneath. What do you need from me? She asked. Jack smiled, and for the first time in weeks, Sarah felt something she'd almost forgotten: hope. Right now, we need you to trust us, and we need to make some calls. Over the next 30 minutes, the diner became a war room. Jack's phone rang constantly. Bikers from other chapters checked in. A lawyer named David Chen Marcus's brother-in-law got patched through and started taking notes. A woman named Rachel Torres, who ran a nonprofit for child safety advocacy, offered to send documentation about similar cases. Emma sat in the booth eating pancakes, actual pancakes with syrup and butter and whipped cream, while Sarah filled out incident reports on a laptop Tommy provided. Every detail, every date, every time Emma mentioned the car or the bullying or an adult who dismissed her concerns. It was like bleeding poison from a wound. At 7:15 a.m., Jack's phone rang again. He answered, listened, and his face transformed into something Emma had only seen once before when Sarah had confronted Officer Kramer and Emma had watched her mother become a warrior. Yeah, Jack said into the phone. Yeah, we're sure. Travis Morrison. Right. Yeah, I know who his father is. Don't care, because it's the right thing to do. How many can you get? Jesus. Okay. We roll at 8:30. Spread the word. He hung up and looked at Sarah. Ma'am, how would you feel about Emma having an escort to school today? You said you'd walk with her. I did, but after I made some calls, things escalated a bit. Jack's grin was slightly wolfish. We're going to have a few more volunteers than expected. How many is a few? Currently about 200. Sarah stared at him. What? Ma'am, when you put out a call that a child needs protection and the system failed her brother's answer, we've got riders coming in from Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, even as far as Ohio. Every man and woman who's ever lost someone, who's ever been ignored by people in power, who's ever wished they'd done more, they're coming. For Emma. Emma looked up from her pancake syrup on her chin. 200 motorcycles. 200 and climbing. Tommy confirmed, checking his phone. Make that 210. Jersey chapter just confirmed 20 riders. Sarah couldn't speak, couldn't process what she was hearing. 200 strangers were coming to protect her daughter who nobody else believed, who'd been dismissed and ignored and called a liar. Why was all she could manage? Jack knelt down beside Emma's booth. Because every child deserves to feel safe. Because systems that protect predators need to be torn down. And because your daughter was brave enough to ask for help when every adult in her life gave up. He looked at Emma. You did that, kiddo. You took the scariest walk of your life and asked for help from strangers. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I was really scared. I know. But you did it anyway. That's what courage is. What happens now? Sarah asked. Jack stood up. Now we show Millbrook what happens when you mess with someone under Hell's Angels protection. Marcus, you get on the horn with David. I want everything documented and legal. Tommy, coordinate with the chapters rolling in. I want a staging area and a clean route to the school. Deacon, you reach out to media local first, but have national on standby. Vincent, you're with me. We're going to pay a visit to Officer Kramer and deliver a message. Jack, Vincent said carefully, we need to be smart about this. I'm always smart. I'm going to walk into that police station, introduce myself politely, and inform Officer Kramer that 200 motorcycles are about to roll through Millbrook, and we'd appreciate it if he didn't try to stop us, since we're just concerned citizens exercising our constitutional rights to peaceful assembly. And if he argues, Jack's smile was cold, then I'll remind him that Emma Carter is 7 years old, gave him a license plate number 3 weeks ago, and he chose to protect Travis Morrison instead of her. I'll also mention that we have lawyers on retainer and every news outlet in Pennsylvania on speed dial. I'm betting he'll suddenly remember he's got better things to do than hassle us. Sarah grabbed Jack's arm as he headed for the door. What if they arrest you? They won't, because arresting me means explaining why, and they don't want those questions asked. He patted her hand. Mrs. Carter, I've been doing this a long time. Sometimes the system works. Sometimes it needs motivation. Today's a motivation day. He left with Vincent, and Sarah sank back into the booth next to Emma. Her daughter was carefully cutting her pancakes into precise squares, a habit she'd had since she was 3. Such a little girl. Such a huge problem. Mommy, Emma asked quietly, are we going to be okay? Sarah pulled her daughter close. Yeah, baby. I think we are. At 7:30, the first motorcycles began arriving in Millbrook. They came in groups of 5, 10, 20, a rumble of engines that grew from distant thunder to a roar that shook windows. They staged in the parking lot of the old textile mill on the edge of town, a forest of chrome and leather that kept growing. Jack returned from the police station with Vincent, both men smiling grimly. Kramer sends his regards, says he'll be in his office if we need anything, which means he's staying the hell out of our way. Any pushback? Marcus asked. He tried. Mentioned disturbing the peace, public safety concerns, the usual. Then I showed him the permits we filed last night. Thank you, David. And mentioned that every single rider has a clean record, and we're just concerned citizens worried about child safety in our community. He got real quiet after that. Tommy walked over with his phone. Jack, we've got a problem. What kind? The good kind. We're at 340 bikes. Jack blinked. 300? Where are they all coming from? Word spread. Social media phone trees, the whole network. Chapter presidents from Maryland, Virginia, Delaware. They're all rolling. There's a group from Toronto that left at 4 a.m. Sarah, who'd been listening, said faintly, Canada. We've got international reach, ma'am, Tommy explained. When something like this hits the network, it goes viral in our community. Every rider who's ever lost someone, every parent who's been ignored, every person who's sick of powerful people getting away with hurting kids, they're coming. Emma had stopped eating. She was staring at the window, watching as more and more motorcycles filled the street outside the diner. Big ones, small ones, bikes ridden by grizzled old men and young women and everything in between. American flags, Marine Corps flags, POW MIA flags. An ocean of leather and denim and solidarity. "They're all coming for me," she whispered. Jack crouched down beside her again. "Every single one of them is coming to make sure you know you're not alone, that you're believed, that you matter." He reached into his vest and pulled out a small leather patch. It was simple red letters on black fabric. "Protected by angels." He held it out to Emma. "This means you're family now. Means nobody messes with you. Ever. You understand?" Emma took the patch with trembling fingers. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet, kiddo. We've got work to do." Jack stood and checked his watch. "It's 8:15. School starts at 9:00. I say we give Millbrook a wake-up call they'll never forget." At 8:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in October, the town of Millbrook, Pennsylvania, population 12,000, discovered that sometimes the angels who save you don't have wings. They have motorcycles. 347 riders fired their engines in perfect synchronization. The sound was apocalyptic, a wall of noise that rolled through the quiet streets, like divine judgment. Dogs barked, car alarms triggered, and windows rattled in their frames. At the center of the formation, sitting in a custom sidecar attached to Jack's Harley, was 7-year-old Emma Carter in her purple jacket. Someone, probably Deacon's wife, had given her a tiny leather vest that matched Jack's. The Protected by Angels patch was already sewn onto the back. Sarah rode behind Tommy, her arms wrapped around his waist, tears streaming down her face as she watched her daughter sit up straight and proud for the first time in months. The convoy rolled through Millbrook like a river of chrome and thunder. They filled Main Street from curb to curb. Store owners came out to watch. People pulled over. Some waved. Some stared in shock. Some pulled out phones and started recording. At Lincoln Elementary School, Principal Harold Hicks was in his office when he heard the sound. It started as distant thunder and grew into something that made his desk vibrate. He walked to the window and went pale. 347 motorcycles were pulling into the school parking lot, the bus lane, the street outside. They formed a corridor from the street to the front door. 2 walls of leather-clad riders standing at attention like soldiers. Parents who were dropping off their children stopped and stared. Kids pressed against windows. Teachers came out of classrooms. The entire school ground to a halt as the impossible scene unfolded. Jack shut off his engine. The silence that followed was somehow louder than the noise. He helped Emma out of the sidecar and knelt down. "You ready, sweetheart?" Emma looked at the school, the building where she'd been bullied, ignored, dismissed, where she'd spent weeks being afraid. She looked back at the 347 people who'd come from 5 states and Canada to stand with her. "Yeah," she said. "I'm ready." They walked together toward the school entrance. Jack on her right, Sarah on her left. Behind them, every single rider fell into formation, a procession of protection that stretched all the way back to Main Street. Tyler Morrison stood on the front steps with his mouth hanging open. Mason Hicks was beside him, pale and suddenly small. Brett had vanished entirely. Emma walked past them without looking. Her head was up her shoulders back. She was done being scared. At the front door, Principal Hicks stood frozen. "Mr. Sullivan, I don't know what you think you're—" "I think," Jack interrupted pleasantly, "that Emma Carter deserves to feel safe at school. And since you wouldn't ensure that we will, every day, for as long as it takes. You can't just— We're not on school property, sir. We're on public streets, sidewalks, and right-of-way. Feel free to call the police. Officer Kramer already knows we're here." Hicks looked past Jack to the sea of motorcycles, to the parents who were now gathering with phones raised, recording everything, to the local news van that was just pulling up. Emma tugged on Jack's vest. "Papa Bear." The nickname had appeared sometime in the last hour and stuck immediately. "Yeah, kiddo. Can I go to school now? I don't want to be late for reading." Jack's face split into a huge grin. "You heard her, everyone. The lady has reading at 9:00. 347 people applauded. Emma walked through the front door of Lincoln Elementary School with her head held high, and for the first time in her life, she knew what it felt like to have an army at her back. The silence inside Lincoln Elementary was deafening after the roar of 347 motorcycles finally cut their engines. Emma walked down the hallway she'd walked 1,000 times before, but everything felt different now. Teachers stood in their doorways watching her pass, students whispered, and Tyler Morrison was nowhere to be seen. Mrs. Patterson sat at her secretary desk, looking like she'd swallowed something sour. She didn't say anything as Emma walked by, didn't offer her usual fake smile, just stared at the leather vest with those 3 words stitched across the back, protected by angels. Emma's classroom was Mr. Reynolds' second-grade room, and when she pushed open the door, 23 pairs of eyes turned to look at her. The room went quiet except for the hum of the overhead lights. Mr. Reynolds stood at the whiteboard with a marker in his hand. "Emma, you're late." "I'm 2 minutes early," Emma said quietly. "Reading doesn't start until 9. Still, you've caused quite a disruption this morning." Emma felt something shift inside her chest. 3 weeks ago, those words would have made her shrink, would have made her apologize and hide. But 347 people were standing outside because they believed her, because she mattered. "I didn't cause anything, Mr. Reynolds. I just came to school, with an army of bikers, with people who care about me." Mr. Reynolds opened his mouth to respond, but Principal Hicks's voice crackled over the intercom. "Teachers, please continue with your normal schedule. Students, please focus on your work. There is nothing to be concerned about." Nothing to be concerned about. Emma almost laughed. The entire town had just watched her walk through a corridor of motorcycles, and there was nothing to be concerned about. She took her seat near the back of the class. Mason Hicks sat 3 rows over his face, red and blotchy like he'd been crying. He wouldn't look at her. Brett wasn't in class at all. His mother had probably kept him home the second she heard the motorcycles. During reading time, Emma focused on her book about dolphins. She loved dolphins. They were smart and traveled in pods and protected each other. Kind of like bikers, she thought, and almost smiled. At recess, Emma walked out to the playground and stopped. The entire perimeter was lined with motorcycles, not blocking anything, not threatening anyone just there. A visible reminder that Emma Carter wasn't alone anymore. Jack stood near the fence talking to Sarah, who'd taken the day off work. When he saw Emma, he waved. Emma waved back. "That's your biker gang?" asked a voice behind her. Emma turned. A girl from Mrs. Patterson's 3rd-grade class stood there. Lily Chen, the pharmacy owner's granddaughter. The same elderly woman the bikers had helped with groceries. "They're not a gang," Emma said. "They're a club." "What's the difference?" "Gangs hurt people. Clubs protect people." Lily considered this. "My grandma says that big man Jack, he helped her when nobody else would. She says he's got a good heart." She paused. "The boys who were mean to you, Tyler, and them, they're mean to lots of kids. My cousin Jeremy got pushed down the stairs by Tyler last year, broke his arm." "Did Jeremy tell—" "Yeah." Principal Hicks said Jeremy tripped. Emma's stomach tightened. "But Tyler pushed him." "Everyone saw it. But Tyler's the councilman's nephew, so nothing happened." Lily looked at the bikers lined up along the fence. "Maybe now something will." The day crept forward with agonizing slowness. Emma felt eyes on her constantly. Whispers followed her through the hallways. But nobody touched her. Nobody tripped her. Nobody called her names. The protection extended beyond the physical presence of the bikers outside. It had created a bubble of safety that wrapped around her, even inside the school walls. At lunch, Emma sat alone like always. But this time Lily Chen sat down across from her. Then a boy named Marcus joined them. Then 2 more girls Emma barely knew. "Is it true you walked into a biker bar and asked for help?" Marcus asked, his eyes wide. "It wasn't a bar. It was a diner." "Still, that's so cool." "I was really scared," Emma admitted. "But you did it anyway," Lily said. "That's what makes it brave." For the first time in months, Emma ate her entire lunch. She even laughed when Marcus told a joke about a penguin who couldn't fly. It wasn't a good joke, but Emma laughed anyway because it felt good to laugh. Principal Hicks appeared in the cafeteria doorway. His eyes scanned the room until they found Emma. He walked over to her table, and the kids around her went quiet. "Emma, I need you to come to my office." Emma's heart jumped into her throat. "Why?" "Just come with me, please." Lily grabbed Emma's hand under the table. "She didn't do anything wrong." "This doesn't concern you, Miss Chen." "But now, Emma." Emma stood on shaky legs and followed Principal Hicks through the cafeteria. She could feel everyone watching. When they reached the hallway, she saw her mother and Jack already standing outside the principal's office. Relief flooded through her. "What's going on?" Sarah demanded. "Why are you pulling my daughter out of lunch?" "Mrs. Carter, Mr. Sullivan, please come inside." Principal Hicks's voice was tight. "We need to discuss the situation." They filed into the office. Emma sat in a chair that was too big for her, while the adults arranged themselves around the room. Principal Hicks sat behind his desk like it was a shield. "This disruption cannot continue," he began. "What disruption?" Jack asked pleasantly. "We're standing on public property. Haven't broken a single law. You're intimidating students and staff. We're making sure Emma gets to school safely. If that intimidates people, they should ask themselves why." Principal Hicks's jaw worked. "Mr. Sullivan, I understand you think you're helping, but this is a school matter. We handle discipline internally." "You've been handling it internally for 3 weeks," Sarah snapped. "My daughter was bullied, stalked, and threatened. Your internal handling did exactly nothing. Mrs. Carter, I understand you're upset. Upset doesn't begin to cover it. My 7-year-old daughter had to ask strangers for help because every adult in the school failed her. That's not fair." "Fair," Sarah's voice rose. "You want to talk about fair? Your nephew Mason has been tormenting my daughter for weeks. Tyler Morrison, the boy whose brother is stalking her, has been physically assaulting her. And you did nothing because they're connected to the right families. Those are serious allegations. They're facts. And we have documentation now. Dates times witnesses. Every incident Emma reported that you ignored." Sarah pulled out a folder Tommy had helped her prepare. "Want to go through them one by one?" Principal Hicks paled slightly. "I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate you calling my daughter out of lunch to intimidate her. What exactly did you plan to accomplish with this meeting?" "I wanted to discuss a solution that works for everyone." Jack leaned forward. "Here's the solution that works for us. Emma goes to school safely. She's treated with respect by staff and students. And if anyone, and I mean anyone, tries to hurt her again, 347 people will want to know why." "That sounds like a threat." "It's a promise. Big difference." The office phone rang. Principal Hicks ignored it. It rang again and again. Finally, he snatched it up. "Yes." His face went through several color changes as he listened. "What? No, when are you? I see. Yes, I understand." He hung up slowly. When he looked at Sarah and Jack, something had fundamentally changed in his expression. Fear, maybe, or resignation. That was Superintendent Wallace. Apparently there's been some media attention about Emma's situation. Local news wants to do a story. He paused. National news is also calling. Sarah blinked. National. CNN, NBC, Fox, all of them. Seems footage of your motorcycle escort went viral. There's a hashtag trending, #ProtectEmma. Emma didn't fully understand what viral meant, but she understood the look on Principal Hicks's face. The look that said he'd miscalculated badly. "The superintendent wants to schedule a meeting," Hicks continued stiffly, "with you, with Emma, and with district officials, to discuss how we can better support Emma's safety and well-being." "How convenient," Jack said dryly. 3 weeks of ignoring her, but 10 minutes of bad publicity, and suddenly everyone cares. "I assure you we've always cared about student safety." "Then why is Emma the first kid in this school to need a biker escort to feel safe?" Principal Hicks had no answer to that. The silence stretched until Emma spoke up, her voice small but clear. "I just want to go to school without being scared." Everyone looked at her. This tiny girl in her purple jacket and borrowed leather vest asking for something that should have been guaranteed from day one. "You'll have that," Principal Hicks said quietly. "I give you my word." "Your word didn't mean much 3 weeks ago," Sarah said coldly. "But we'll take the meeting. and Mr. Sullivan will be there as Emma's advocate. That's highly irregular. So is a 7-year-old needing 300 bikers to protect her? We're way past regular here. They left the office with Emma between them. As they walked back toward the cafeteria, Sarah's phone started buzzing. Text messages were pouring in from numbers she didn't recognize. Supportive messages. Offers of help. People sharing their own stories of being failed by systems that should have protected them. It's spreading, Sarah whispered, staring at her phone. Like wildfire, Jack confirmed. His own phone was going crazy. We've got chapters in California reaching out, Texas, Oregon. Everyone wants to know how they can help. Help with what? With making sure this never happens to another kid. Jack looked down at Emma. You started something today, kiddo. Something big. Emma didn't feel big. She felt tired and overwhelmed and like she wanted to go home and hug her stuffed elephant and sleep for a week. But she also felt something else, something she'd almost forgotten she could feel. Hope. The afternoon passed in a blur. Emma tried to focus on math and social studies, but her brain kept wandering. She thought about the motorcycles outside, about the way Tyler had looked scared for once, about Lily and Marcus sitting with her at lunch. When the final bell rang at 3:15, Emma walked out the front door to find the scene from that morning had doubled. More motorcycles had arrived throughout the day. More riders, more flags, more people who'd driven hours just to stand with a little girl they'd never met. And standing in the middle of it all, looking absolutely furious, was Travis Morrison. He stood next to a black Dodge Charger with a dented bumper, the same car that had haunted Emma's nightmares for weeks. He was screaming at Jack, his face red and spit flying from his mouth. You can't do this. This is harassment. I'll have every one of you arrested. Jack stood perfectly still, arms crossed. For what exactly? For stalking me, for threatening me. Nobody's threatened you, Travis. We're just standing here. Public property. You're trying to intimidate me. If our presence intimidates you, that's your guilty conscience talking, not our problem. Travis looked around wildly. Parents were watching. Students were watching. A local news camera was watching. He was trapped in the spotlight with nowhere to hide. I didn't do anything to that kid. Then you've got nothing to worry about. Jack's voice was calm, almost conversational. But just so we're clear, Emma Carter is under Hell's Angels protection now. That means if anything happens to her, if she so much as trips on a crack in the sidewalk, and we think someone caused it, we're going to ask questions. Lots of questions. To lots of people. This is insane. What's insane is a 20-year-old man following a 7-year-old girl to school. What's insane is the police doing nothing about it. What's insane is pretending powerful families can do whatever they want with no consequences. Jack took a single step forward. Those days are done in Millbrook. Travis's hands were shaking. He looked like he wanted to take a swing at Jack, but had enough survival instinct left to realize what a catastrophically bad idea that would be. My father will destroy you. Your father, Jack said quietly, should have raised you better. Travis's face crumpled. For just a second, Emma saw something in his expression that looked almost human. Shame, maybe, or fear. Then he was scrambling into his car and peeling out of the parking lot with a screech of tires. The crowd erupted in cheers. Emma stood on the school steps holding Sarah's hand, watching the black car disappear around a corner. The car that had haunted her for weeks was running away from her. Is he gone? Emma asked softly. For now, Jack said, walking over to them. But Emma, I need you to understand something. This isn't over yet. Men like Travis don't give up easy, especially when they've got family money protecting them. Things might get worse before they get better. How much worse? Jack knelt down to her level. I don't know, kiddo. But I promise you won't face it alone. None of us are going anywhere. That night, Sarah sat at their kitchen table scrolling through social media on Tommy's laptop. The footage of Emma's motorcycle escort had been viewed 8 million times. 8 million. The hashtag #ProtectEmma was trending nationwide. News articles were calling it the biker justice movement and the stand that changed everything. There were think pieces about institutional failure and the power of community. Op-eds about child safety, and systemic corruption. Interviews with other parents who'd been ignored by schools and police. Emma's story had become everyone's story. But there was also darkness in the comments. People defending the Morrison family. People saying Emma was a liar seeking attention. People threatening the bikers, threatening Sarah, even threatening Emma herself. "Don't read those," Jack said from the doorway. Sarah jumped. She hadn't heard him come in. He'd been outside coordinating the night watch rotation. Even though Travis had fled, nobody was taking chances. How can people say these things? Sarah gestured at the screen. She's 7 years old. Because the truth scares them. Because if Emma's telling the truth, it means the system they trust is broken. And admitting that means admitting they're not safe either. Jack sat down across from her. But for every cruel comment, there's 100 supportive ones. Focus on those. What if this backfires? What if we're making things worse for Emma? Things were already as bad as they could get. Emma was being hunted by a predator and nobody would help. Now the whole world is watching. The Morrison family can't make this go away quietly. That's progress. Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her face went white. "What?" Jack asked immediately. "It's from Officer Kramer. He wants to meet. Says he has information about Travis Morrison's arrest record." Arrest record? Travis was never arrested. That's what I thought too. Sarah showed him the screen. Kramer says there were 2 incidents in the past 3 years, both sealed, both involving minors. Jack's jaw clenched. He's been doing this before. And they covered it up, both times. Who's they? Kramer didn't say. Just that we need to meet somewhere private. He's scared, Jack. I can tell from the message. Jack stood abruptly. Call him back. Tell him to meet us at Rosie's Diner at midnight. Public enough that he's safe, late enough that fewer people will notice. And Sarah. Yeah. This could be a setup. I'm bringing backup. At 11:45 p.m., Rosie's Diner was nearly empty except for a tired waitress and a truck driver nursing coffee in the corner booth. Jack sat at the same table where Emma had asked for help 12 hours earlier. It felt like a lifetime ago. Vincent and Marcus flanked the entrance. Tommy sat in a booth with a clear view of the parking lot. Deacon waited outside on his bike engine, running ready to alert the others if anything went wrong. Sarah sat across from Jack, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea she hadn't touched. What if he doesn't show? Then he doesn't show, but something tells me. The door opened. Officer Dale Kramer looked like he'd aged 10 years since that morning. His uniform was wrinkled, his face haggard. He glanced around the diner nervously before sliding into the booth next to Sarah. You came alone? Jack asked. Had to. If the department knew I was here, I'd be suspended by morning. Kramer pulled out a manila folder. I'm risking my career doing this. Hell, I'm risking worse than that. Then why do it? Because I've got a daughter. She's 5. And after today, after watching you people show up for a kid, nobody else would help. I couldn't sleep. His hands shook as he opened the folder. I became a cop because I wanted to protect people. Somewhere along the way, I forgot what that meant. He pushed the folder across the table. Sarah opened it and gasped. Inside were police reports. 3 of them. All involving Travis Morrison. All involving girls between the ages of 7 and 14. All stamped with red letters. Sealed by order. What is this? Sarah breathed. The truth nobody wanted you to see. First incident was 4 years ago. Travis was 16. Got caught following a 12-year-old girl from the mall to her house. Her parents called it in. We investigated. Found hundreds of photos of young girls on his phone. Should have been charged with stalking at minimum. But Robert Morrison Sr., the mayor, made some calls. Case sealed. Travis went to a therapist for 6 months and everything went away. Jack's voice was dangerously quiet. And the second incident. 2 years later. Travis was 18. Caught masturbating in his car outside an elementary school. Broad daylight. Teacher reported it. We arrested him. But again, the mayor's office intervened. Called it a mental health episode. Sealed the record. Travis got more therapy. And the third, Sarah's voice cracked. 3 months ago, 9-year-old girl reported Travis tried to get her into his car. Offered her candy, asked if she needed a ride. She was smart enough to run. Her parents came to the station. I took the report myself. Kramer's face twisted with shame. I was told to lose it. Direct order from the chief. The chief who plays golf with Robert Morrison twice a week. The diner was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. So you knew, Sarah said, her voice hollow. When I came to you 3 weeks ago with Emma's story, you knew exactly who Travis Morrison was and what he'd done. And you sent us away. Yes. You let my daughter stay in danger to protect the mayor's family. Yes. Sarah's hand moved so fast Jack almost didn't catch it. She'd grabbed the coffee mug and would have thrown it at Kramer's face if Jack hadn't wrapped his hand around hers. Sarah, not like this. He knew. Sarah was shaking with rage. He knew and he did nothing. And Emma could have. He could have. I know, but we need him alive and willing to testify. Jack turned to Kramer. That's why you're here, isn't it? You're ready to go on record. Kramer nodded miserably. After today, after watching that little girl walk into school like she'd won a war, I realized I was on the wrong side. I've been on the wrong side for years, and if I don't do something now, I'll never be able to look at my own daughter again. You'll lose your job, Vincent said from his position by the door. I know. You'll probably face criminal charges for obstruction. I know that too. The Morrison family will come after you with everything they have. Let them. Kramer looked up and his eyes were red. I'm done being scared. I'm done protecting predators because they have money. Someone needs to stop this, and if it costs me everything, so be it. Jack studied the man across from him. Kramer was weak and complicit, and had failed Emma when it mattered most. But he was also here at midnight risking everything to make it right. Okay, Jack said finally. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take those files to Agent Victoria Chun at the FBI field office in Pittsburgh. She's an old friend, served with me in Afghanistan. Tell her I sent you. Tell her everything. The FBI. Local law enforcement is compromised. We need federal intervention. Victoria specializes in corruption cases and crimes against children. This is exactly her jurisdiction. Jack leaned forward. But Kramer, if you're doing this, you're all in. No backing out. No changing your story when the Morrison lawyers show up. You understand? I understand. Good. Because you're not just testifying for Emma. You're testifying for every kid Travis hurt. Every kid he might hurt in the future. Every family that got silenced like Sarah was silenced. You're testifying for all of them. Kramer nodded slowly. When do I go? Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Marcus will go with you. Make sure you actually follow through. Jack glanced at Marcus, who nodded. And Kramer. Thank you. This doesn't erase what you did. Doesn't make you a hero. But it's a start. After Kramer left, Sarah sat in stunned silence, staring at the folder. There were others, she whispered. Emma wasn't the first. No, Jack said gently. But maybe she'll be the last. Maybe this is where it ends. How can you be sure? Because the Morrison family's protection only works in darkness, in quiet, in sealed records and closed-door deals. We just dragged everything into the light. And the thing about darkness, once you shine a light on it, it can't hide anymore. Sarah looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this? Really? Jack was quiet for a long moment. Because 24 years ago, I was on patrol in Kabul when we found a girl hiding in a bombed-out building. She was maybe 8 years old, alone, terrified. She'd been assaulted by someone we never found out who. And I remember thinking, how did we let this happen? How did every adult in this child's life fail so completely that she ended up here? He rubbed his face. I carried that girl to the medics, made sure she got care. But I never found out what happened to her, never knew if she survived, and I've thought about her every single day since. Emma reminds you of her. Every scared kid reminds me of her. Every child the system fails. Every time someone in power chooses protecting their reputation over protecting the innocent. Jack's voice was rough. I can't save that girl in Kabul, but maybe I can save Emma. Maybe I can make sure what happened to her doesn't happen to anyone else. It's not much, but it's something. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed his hand. It's everything. They sat together in the diner as midnight ticked toward morning, two people who'd been strangers 48 hours ago and were now bound together by a single promise to protect a 7-year-old girl who'd been brave enough to ask for help. Outside, 347 motorcycles were parked throughout Millbrook. Riders slept in shifts, watching Emma's apartment, watching the school, watching for any sign of threat. A network of protection that stretched across state lines and refused to break. Somewhere in the darkness, Travis Morrison was awake too, realizing with growing panic that his family's money couldn't buy him out of this, that the world was watching, that justice delayed for so long was finally coming. And in a small apartment on the 3rd floor of the Parkside complex, Emma Carter slept through the night for the first time in 3 weeks. She dreamed of motorcycles and angels and a future where she didn't have to be afraid anymore. The dream was about to become real. Morning came too fast and brought chaos with it. Sarah's phone started ringing at 6:47 a.m., reporters, news stations, people claiming to be lawyers offering their services. She let most of it go to voicemail, but one call made her stomach drop. It was from Lincoln Elementary's main office. Mrs. Carter, this is Principal Hicks. The superintendent has requested an emergency meeting at 8:30 this morning. Your presence is required. Required. It's regarding Emma's continued enrollment at Lincoln Elementary. Sarah's blood went cold. What does that mean? It means we need to discuss whether this environment is suitable for Emma given the current circumstances. You mean given that 300 bikers are protecting her from your nephew and a known predator? The line went quiet for a beat. 8:30, Mrs. Carter. Please don't be late. Sarah hung up and immediately called Jack. He answered on the first ring, his voice alert despite the early hour. They're going to try to expel her, Sarah said without preamble. They're calling it an enrollment discussion, but that's what this is. They want Emma gone so the Morrison family can save face. Like hell, Jack growled. What time's the meeting? To 8:30. Good. That gives us time. Get Emma ready for school like normal. We'll handle this. Jack, if they expel her, they won't. Trust me. But Sarah heard something in his voice that scared her. Something sharp and dangerous that reminded her these men weren't just protective, they were soldiers. And soldiers knew how to fight wars. Emma was quiet during breakfast, pushing her cereal around the bowl without eating. She'd heard Sarah's side of the phone conversation and understood enough to know something bad was coming. Are they going to kick me out of school? Emma asked finally. Sarah wanted to lie, wanted to promise everything would be fine. But she'd learned that lying to children about danger only made them trust you less when the danger became real. They're going to try, but Jack won't let them. What if Jack can't stop them? Then we'll find another school, a better school. But you can't afford private school. I heard you talking to Grandma about money. Sarah's heart broke a little. 7 years old and already carrying adult worries. Emma, baby, you don't need to worry about... I do, though. I worry all the time. About money, and about you being tired, and about whether asking the bikers for help made everything worse. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Maybe if I just stayed quiet, everything would be normal. Sarah pulled her daughter into her lap despite Emma being almost too big for it. Normal doesn't mean safe. Normal meant you were being hunted and nobody helped. If standing up for yourself makes things complicated, then complicated is better than silent. But what if... A knock at the door interrupted them. Sarah checked the peephole and saw Jack standing in the hallway holding 2 coffee cups and a small white bag. She opened the door. You didn't have to... Chocolate donuts, Jack said, handing the bag to Emma. Figured you could use some breakfast that doesn't taste like cardboard. Emma took the bag hesitantly. Are they going to kick me out? Not if I have anything to say about it, which I do. Quite a lot, actually. Jack sat down at their small kitchen table. Emma, I need to ask you something important. If the school says you can't come back, how do you feel about that? I don't know. Scared, I guess. School is where I see my friends. You have friends there. Now I do. Lily and Marcus and some other kids. They sat with me at lunch yesterday, before nobody wanted to sit with me. Jack nodded slowly. So you want to stay at Lincoln? If I can be safe there, if Tyler and Mason leave me alone, if Mr. Reynolds doesn't look at me like I'm causing problems just by existing, that's a lot of ifs. I know. Here's what I think. I think you earned your spot at that school the second you walked through those doors yesterday with your head up. I think you've got every right to stay, and I think anyone who tries to take that from you is going to have to go through me first. Jack's voice was gentle but absolute. But Emma, this meeting today, it might get ugly. Adults saying things that aren't true. People trying to make you feel small again. Can you handle that? Emma thought about it seriously, chewing her donut. Finally, she said, Will you be there? Every second. Then I can handle it. They arrived at Lincoln Elementary at 8:15. The motorcycle escort was smaller today, only 40 bikes instead of hundreds. But the message was just as clear. Tommy Vincent and Deacon flanked Jack as he walked Sarah and Emma to the entrance. Principal Hicks met them at the door, his face tight. Mr. Sullivan, this is a closed meeting. School personnel and parents only. I'm Emma's advocate. Sarah requested I be present. That's not. Pennsylvania Education Code Section 1442 allows parents to bring a representative to any meeting concerning their child's educational status. I'm that representative. You can let me in, or you can explain to the superintendent why you violated state law. Jack's smile was pleasant and utterly cold. Your choice. Ricks's jaw worked. Fine. But the motorcycles stay outside. Wouldn't dream of bringing them in. Fire hazard. The conference room was too small for the number of people crammed into it. Superintendent Wallace sat at the head of the table, a thin woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and an expression that gave nothing away. Principal Hicks sat to her left. The school's lawyer, a nervous-looking man named Peters, sat to her right. Two school board members Emma didn't recognize filled out the rest of the table. Sarah, Emma, and Jack sat on the opposite side. The divide was clear. Us versus them. Thank you for coming, Superintendent Wallace began. I know this is difficult for everyone. Difficult is one word for it, Sarah said tightly. Mrs. Carter, I want to assure you that this district takes student safety very seriously. However, the events of the past 2 days have created an untenable situation. Untenable for who exactly? For everyone. The presence of multiple motorcycle clubs at our school has frightened parents and students. We've received dozens of complaints. Complaints about what? Jack asked. We haven't broken any laws, haven't threatened anyone. We're standing on public property ensuring Emma can attend school safely. Your presence is disruptive. What's disruptive is a 20-year-old predator stalking a 7-year-old in the school doing nothing about it. The lawyer Peters cleared his throat. Mr. Sullivan, there's no evidence that Travis Morrison ever... There's 3 sealed police reports that say otherwise. Would you like to see them? The room went dead silent. Superintendent Wallace's expression flickered surprise, then calculation. I don't know what you're referring to. Then you should talk to Officer Dale Kramer, or better yet, wait for the FBI to contact you. They'll have questions about why this district allowed a known predator's family members to bully his victims. That's a serious accusation. It's a fact. Tyler Morrison, Travis's cousin, has been physically assaulting Emma for weeks. Mason Hicks, the principal's nephew, has been doing the same. Both boys come from families with enough influence to make complaints disappear. But that stops today. Principal Hicks stood up abruptly. You can't come in here and accuse. Sit down, Harold, Superintendent Wallace said quietly. Hicks sat. She turned her attention to Emma, and her expression softened slightly. Emma, sweetie, can you tell me what happened in your own words? Emma looked at Sarah, who nodded. Then Emma started talking. She told them everything. The black car. The things Travis said. Going to Officer Kramer and being turned away. Telling Principal Hicks and being dismissed. The bullying, the shoving, the names. the feeling of drowning while adults watched and did nothing. Her voice was small but steady. She didn't cry. She just told the truth. When she finished, one of the school board members, a woman with kind eyes, was wiping tears away. The other board member looked sick. Even Peters, the lawyer, had gone pale. "Why didn't you tell us this before?" Superintendent Wallace asked Principal Hicks. "I did report concerns to your office," Hicks said weakly. "Multiple times. You reported that Emma was attention-seeking, and her mother was overly anxious. You never mentioned stalking or assault. I didn't have concrete evidence. You had a child's testimony. You had a mother's repeated complaints. You had multiple witnesses to the bullying." Wallace's voice was ice. "What you didn't have was the courage to stand up to the Morrison family." "That's not fair." "Fair." Wallace's composure cracked. "Harold, I've been getting calls since 6 a.m. from the mayor's office demanding we expel Emma, from Councilman Morrison threatening to pull funding if we don't make this problem go away, from parents asking why we're punishing a child for being a victim. Do you understand what you've done to this district's reputation? I was trying to handle it quietly. You were trying to make it disappear. There's a difference." Wallace turned to Sarah. "Mrs. Carter, on behalf of Millbrook School District, I apologize. We failed your daughter. That failure is inexcusable, and it ends now." Sarah didn't trust her voice, so she just nodded. "Emma will not be expelled or transferred. She will continue at Lincoln Elementary with full support from this office. Any further bullying will be handled immediately and with appropriate consequences, regardless of who the child's family is. Is that clear, Harold?" Principal Hicks looked like he wanted to argue but managed a stiff nod. "Good. Now, as for the motorcycle presence—" "Non-negotiable," Jack interrupted. "Emma walks to school with an escort until we're satisfied she's safe. That's not changing." "Mr. Sullivan, surely you can understand the optics. The optics are that this school failed to protect a child, and private citizens had to step in. The optics are that it took viral videos and national attention to make anyone care. The optics are exactly what they should be, a system that's broken, and people willing to fix it. We can't have hundreds of motorcycles at our school indefinitely. Then make it so Emma doesn't need us anymore. Create an environment where she's actually safe, where bullies face real consequences, where powerful families can't intimidate victims into silence. Do that and we'll leave." Jack leaned forward. "Until then, we stay." Superintendent Wallace studied him for a long moment. "You're not going to make this easy, are you?" "Making it easy is what got us here in the first place." A ghost of a smile crossed Wallace's face. "Fair point. All right, Mr. Sullivan. You can maintain a reasonable presence at the school, but reasonable means no more than 20 motorcycles at a time and riders must stay off school property. Can you agree to those terms?" Jack glanced at Sarah, who nodded slightly. "We can work with that." "Good. Mrs. Carter, Emma again, I'm truly sorry for what you've been through. Harold, you and I will be having a much longer conversation after this meeting." Wallace stood signaling the end. "I think we're done here." They filed out of the conference room. Principal Hicks avoided eye contact with everyone. The school board members stopped Sarah in the hallway. "Mrs. Carter," the woman with kind eyes said quietly, "my name is Jennifer Park. I have a daughter Emma's age. What happened to your girl? What almost happened? I can't sleep thinking about it. If you need anything at all, please call me." She pressed a business card into Sarah's hand. The other board member, an older man, added, "The Morrison family has run this town too long. Maybe it's time that changed." Outside, the morning sun was bright and cold. Emma breathed in the autumn air and felt something loosen in her chest. "I can stay?" she asked, like she still couldn't believe it. "You can stay," Sarah confirmed. "They believed me." "Finally. Yeah, baby, they finally believed you." Emma threw her arms around Jack's waist, nearly knocking him over. "Thank you, Papa Bear." Jack patted her back awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with the emotion, but touched nonetheless. "You did the hard part, kiddo. All we did was stand with you. That was the part nobody else would do." As they walked toward Sarah's car, Jack's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression changed. "I need to take this. Victoria's calling." He stepped away, phone to his ear. Sarah watched his face go from neutral to shocked to something like grim satisfaction. When he hung up, he was smiling. "What happened?" Sarah asked. "Agent Chun moved fast. She brought Kramer in at 8 a.m. like we planned. He gave a full statement about the sealed reports, the mayor's interference, everything. Victoria's opening a federal investigation into the Millbrook Police Department for obstruction of justice and the school district for failure to report suspected child abuse." What does that mean for Travis? It means federal charges, multiple counts of stalking a minor attempted abduction, and if they can prove he actually touched any of those girls, worse, much worse. His father's money won't help him in federal court. Sarah felt dizzy. It's really happening. After weeks of nothing, it's all happening so fast. That's how it works when you drag corruption into the light. It can't survive scrutiny. Jack's expression sobered. But Sarah, this is when it gets dangerous. The Morrison family is about to lose everything: power, reputation, their son's freedom. Cornered animals bite hardest. We need to be careful. As if summoning them with his words, a black Mercedes pulled into the school parking lot. Not Travis's Dodge Charger, but something worse. A car that screamed money and power and consequences. Councilman Robert Morrison Jr. stepped out, followed by an older man who could only be his father, the mayor. They moved with the confidence of people who'd never been told no in their lives. Robert Jr. spotted Jack and Sarah and walked straight toward them, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. "You," he said, pointing at Jack. "You've destroyed my family. Your son did that all by himself. Travis is innocent. Those reports are fabricated. That police officer is lying for attention. 3 different incidents, 3 different victims, multiple witnesses. But sure, everyone's lying except your serial predator son." Robert Jr.'s face went purple. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Actually, I do. You're a small-town councilman who thinks power means you're above the law. You're the reason your son thought he could stalk children without consequences. You're the problem." Jack's voice was calm, which somehow made it more devastating. "And now you're the past. This isn't over." "Yeah, it is. The FBI is already building a case. The media has the story. The whole country is watching. Your protection racket doesn't work anymore." Mayor Morrison spoke for the first time, his voice like gravel. "Mr. Sullivan, I think you misunderstand the situation. My family has connections at every level. State senators, federal judges, people who can make your life very difficult. Threaten me all you want, but do it carefully, because Emma's recording this on her phone." Everyone looked down. Emma held Sarah's phone up, the camera pointed directly at the Morrisons, a red recording dot visible on the screen. "Hi, Councilman Morrison," Emma said in that innocent 7-year-old voice. "Why did your son follow me to school? Was he going to hurt me like he hurt those other girls?" Robert Jr. looked like he'd been slapped. His father grabbed his arm, yanking him back toward the Mercedes. "This conversation is over," the mayor snapped. "No," Jack called after them. "It's just beginning. See you in court." The Mercedes peeled out of the parking lot. Emma lowered the phone, her hands shaking slightly. "Did I do good?" she asked. "You did perfect," Sarah said, pulling her daughter close. "You brilliant, brave, perfect girl." Vincent jogged over from where he'd been standing watch. "Jack, we've got a situation. Looks like the Morrisons called in reinforcements. There's a group of guys in Morrison construction trucks circling the block, at least 15 of them." Jack's jaw tightened. "Morrison's trying to intimidate us, show force." "What do we do?" "We show more force. Call everyone. Everyone who can ride, everyone who can get here in the next 30 minutes. And get Emma and Sarah out of here, now." "Jack, what are you?" Sarah started. "They're going to try something. Probably a fight they can film and use to claim we're violent criminals. We're not giving them that." Jack looked at Vincent. "Get them to the safe house Tommy set up. Stay there until I call." "What about you?" "I'll be fine. I've handled worse than angry construction workers. Go." Vincent didn't argue. He guided Sarah and Emma to his bike, handed Sarah a helmet and lifted Emma into a makeshift seat he'd rigged behind him. Within seconds, they were weaving through side streets away from the school. Sarah looked back once and saw Jack standing alone in the parking lot as 3 trucks pulled in, men with hard hats and harder faces climbing out. Then they turned a corner, and Jack disappeared from view. The safe house was actually Tommy's sister's apartment across town. She'd moved to Florida 6 months ago and left the place empty. It was small, clean, and most importantly, unknown to anyone outside the club. Sarah paced while Emma sat on the couch still holding the phone with the Morrison recording. Vincent stood by the window phone pressed to his ear, talking in low, urgent tones. "What's happening?" Sarah asked for the 10th time. "Jack's handling it." "That's not an answer," Vincent sighed. The Morrison guys tried to start something, pushing, yelling, the usual intimidation tactics. Jack didn't bite, just stood there calm as Sunday morning while they got in his face. Then about 60 bikers showed up and the construction guys suddenly remembered they had work to do. "Is Jack hurt?" "Not a scratch. Like I said, he's handled worse." Sarah sank onto the couch next to Emma. Her daughter leaned against her side, exhausted from a morning that had already contained more drama than most people experienced in a year. "Mommy, why do they hate us so much?" "They don't hate us, baby. They're scared. When powerful people do bad things, they need everyone to stay quiet. We stopped being quiet. So they want to scare us into being quiet again." "Something like that." "It's working. I'm really scared." Sarah kissed the top of Emma's head. "Me too. But Papa Bear isn't. And neither are all those other people who showed up to help. We're not alone anymore." "Will we ever be able to stop being scared?" "Yeah, I think so. It just takes time." Vincent's phone rang again. He listened, nodded, and turned to Sarah. "That was Jack. FBI just arrested Travis Morrison at his parents' house. Federal charges. He's not making bail." Sarah's hands flew to her mouth. "They got him. Got him." Victoria moved fast once she had Kramer's testimony. "They're also bringing charges against Chief Dawson for obstruction and against Mayor Morrison for abuse of power. The whole thing's falling apart for them." "It's over," Sarah whispered. "It's actually over. The criminal case is just starting, but yeah, Travis won't be following Emma anymore. Won't be following any kid anymore." Emma had gone very quiet. Sarah looked down and saw tears streaming down her daughter's face. "Baby, what's wrong? This is good news." "I know. That's why I'm crying. Because it's over and I can stop being scared. And I didn't think that would ever happen, but it did, and I'm so tired, Mommy. I'm so tired." Sarah pulled Emma into her lap and held her, while 7-year-old shoulders shook with the weight of trauma. Finally acknowledged fear. Finally released justice. Finally served. Vincent looked away, giving them privacy, but Sarah saw him wipe his own eyes. They stayed in the safe house for 3 more hours, while Jack and the others made sure the Morrison people had actually backed off. When Jack finally came to get them, he looked tired but satisfied. "All clear. They're licking their wounds and talking to lawyers. Nobody's going to bother you today." "What about tomorrow?" Sarah asked. "Tomorrow we do it all over again. Emma goes to school, we escort her, and life keeps moving forward. Eventually the Morrisons will realize they lost and move on. And if they don't, then we'll still be here. For as long as it takes." That night, Emma slept in her own bed for the first time in weeks without waking up screaming. Sarah checked on her 3 times just to make sure it was real. Each time Emma was sleeping peacefully, arms wrapped around her stuffed elephant face, relaxed and young again. Sarah sat in the dark living room scrolling through messages. The video of Emma confronting the Morrisons had gone even more viral than the motorcycle escort. 17 million views and climbing. Comments from around the world supporting Emma, praising her courage, sharing similar stories of systems that failed them. Jack sat in the chair across from her. He'd insisted on staying the night, sleeping on the couch just in case. Sarah should have protested, but she was too grateful to argue. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. You already thanked me." "Not enough. You saved my daughter's life. She saved herself. We just showed up." Jack, if you hadn't believed her, if you'd turned her away like everyone else, I don't know what would have happened. Jack was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. That girl in Kabul that I told you about. The one we found in the rubble, I learned later she didn't make it. Died 3 days after we found her. Internal injuries we didn't know about. She was alone when it happened. He paused. I think about her all the time. Wonder if we'd gotten there sooner, if we'd done more, if someone had protected her before it got that far. Emma's not that girl. Emma gets to live, gets to feel safe, gets to be 7 years old without looking over her shoulder. That's everything. Sarah reached across and took his hand. You're a good man, Jack Sullivan. I'm just a man who showed up. World needs more of those. They sat together in comfortable silence while Emma slept, and 347 people across 5 states stayed ready to answer if they were needed. The network held, the protection held, and for the first time in weeks, morning didn't feel like a threat anymore. The next 3 weeks moved like water finding its level after a storm fast. In some places slow in others, but always moving forward. Emma went back to school each day with her escort reduced to the agreed-upon 20 motorcycles rotating riders, so no one missed too much work. Tyler Morrison transferred to a private school 2 towns over. Mason Hicks stopped coming to Lincoln altogether. His parents pulled him out the day after Superintendent Wallace suspended Principal Hicks pending investigation. Brett showed up once, took one look at the bikers outside, and spent the entire day so quiet, his teacher asked if he was sick. But the absence of her tormentors didn't erase what they'd done. Emma still flinched at sudden movements, still checked over her shoulder, still had nightmares about black cars and greasy smiles. It takes time, the therapist told Sarah during their second session. Dr. Michelle Okonkwo was a child psychologist specializing in trauma, and she'd offered her services pro bono after seeing Emma's story. Emma experienced sustained psychological terror. Her nervous system learned the world isn't safe. Unlearning that doesn't happen overnight. How long? Sarah asked, desperate for a timeline. A finish line, some promise that her daughter would be okay again. As long as it takes. Could be months, could be years. But she's young, she's resilient, and most importantly, she has support. That makes all the difference. Emma sat in Dr. Okonkwo's office playing with small figurines, a game the therapist used to help children process trauma without having to talk about it directly. Emma had arranged all the scary figures on one side and all the protective figures on the other. The protective side was winning. Tell me about your bikers, Dr. Okonkwo said gently. They're not my bikers. They're just people who help. Do they make you feel safe? Emma nodded, moving a motorcycle figurine closer to a small girl figure that was obviously meant to be her. Papa Bear says nobody's going to hurt me. I believe him. That's good. It's important to have people you can trust. I didn't used to have people, just Mommy. But Mommy couldn't be everywhere. And now I have lots of people. Tommy brings me coloring books. Vincent taught me how to whistle really loud. Deacon's teaching me guitar, just basic stuff, but still. Marcus tells the best jokes. And Papa Bear, Emma's voice got softer. Papa Bear just shows up, every single day, even when I know he's tired. Dr. Okonkwo made a note. How does that make you feel? Safe and kind of sad. Because I know someday they'll have to stop. They have their own lives and families, and they can't protect me forever. And when they leave, I'll be alone again. Is that what you're afraid of? Being alone? Emma nodded, tears spilling over. What if the bad people come back when the bikers are gone? It was a question Sarah didn't know how to answer. A question that kept her up at night, too. But Jack had an answer, and he delivered it on a Saturday morning 3 weeks after Travis Morrison's arrest. He showed up at Sarah's apartment at 9 a.m. with Tommy, Vincent, Marcus, and Deacon, all of them looking unusually serious. Sarah let them in, her stomach nodding with worry. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Jack said. But we need to talk about what happens next. They sat around the small kitchen table, Emma between Sarah and Jack. The bikers looked at each other, some silent communication passing between them before Jack spoke. Emma, you told your therapist you're scared we're going to leave. That when things calm down, you'll be alone again. Emma's face went red. Dr. Okonkwo told you that your mom did, and she's right to, because here's the thing, kiddo, we can't escort you to school forever. Some of us have jobs we're already missing shifts for. Some of us live 3 states away. And yeah, eventually media attention dies down. People move on to the next story, and keeping 300 riders on call stops being sustainable. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I knew it. I knew you'd leave. I didn't say we're leaving. I said we can't do this forever. Jack pulled out a folder and opened it on the table. So we're doing something different, something permanent. Inside the folder were papers, legal documents, organizational charters, and corporation filings. Sarah tried to read them upside down and couldn't make sense of the legal language. What is this? This, Tommy said, is the paperwork for a new nonprofit organization. We're calling it Shield of Angels. Shield of Angels, Vincent continued, is a nationwide network dedicated to protecting children who've been failed by the system. Kids being bullied, kids being stalked, kids whose complaints get ignored because the abuser has money or power or connections. We've been working on this for 2 weeks, Marcus added. Talking to lawyers, setting up funding structures, reaching out to other motorcycle clubs and veteran organizations. Everyone wants in. Deacon leaned forward. The concept is simple. A family reports that their child is in danger and the system isn't helping. We investigate, verify the claim, and if it's legitimate, we provide protection. Escort safe houses. Legal advocacy, media pressure. Whatever it takes to keep the kids safe and force accountability. Sarah couldn't breathe. You're doing this because of Emma. We're doing this because of every Emma, Jack corrected. Every kid who gets told they're lying. Every parent who gets dismissed. Every time power protects predators instead of children. Emma showed us the problem. Now we're building the solution. But the cost, the time, how is this sustainable? We've already got funding commitments, Tommy said, pulling out another set of papers. 3 major motorcycle clubs have pledged ongoing support. The American Legion is partnering with us. We've got donations pouring in from people who saw Emma's story and want to help. Last count, we're at $847,000 in committed funds. Sarah's head spun. 800. And climbing. Turns out a lot of people are tired of watching kids suffer while institutions do nothing. They want to be part of the solution. Jack looked at Emma. Your courage started something bigger than you know, kiddo. People across the country are forming SHIELD chapters, setting up local networks, creating a system that actually protects children instead of protecting their abusers. So you're not leaving? Emma asked in a small voice. We're not leaving. We're expanding. And Emma... Jack pulled out one more paper. This one simpler, a certificate with Emma's name on it. You're our first official member, honorary co-founder of Shield of Angels, which means you'll always be part of this family. Always have people you can call. Always matter. Emma stared at the certificate with her name written in careful calligraphy. Below it, signatures Jack, Tommy, Vincent, Marcus, Deacon, and dozens more. Every rider who'd shown up that first morning had signed it. I'm a co-founder. The most important one. You're the reason we're doing this. Emma traced her name with one finger, tears dripping onto the paper. I just wanted to feel safe. Now other kids will too, because of you. Sarah was crying too, not even trying to hide it. Jack, I don't know how to thank you for... Then don't. This isn't charity, Sarah. This is justice. This is what should have happened from the beginning. We're just making sure it happens from now on. Tommy stood up. There's one more thing. Emma, we need your help with something. My help. Yeah. We're planning a national launch for Shield of Angels. Big press conference, media coverage, the whole deal. We want you to speak. Emma's eyes went wide. Speak in front of people. In front of cameras. Tell your story. Help other kids understand they're not alone. You don't have to if you're not ready. But we think your voice could change lives. Sarah started to object. Emma was too young, too traumatized. It was too much to ask. But Emma spoke first. When? 2 weeks. We're holding it at the state capitol in Harrisburg. We're expecting a huge turnout, press, politicians, families who've been through similar situations. It's going to be big. Will Papa Bear be there? Every second. Emma looked at Sarah, her face serious. Mommy? Should I do it? Sarah wanted to say no. Wanted to protect her daughter from more spotlight, more scrutiny, more chances for the Morrison family or people like them to attack. But she also remembered 7-year-old Emma walking into that diner alone at dawn because no adult would help her. Remembered her daughter's courage when courage was all she had left. I think, Sarah said carefully, that you should do what feels right. Not what you think you should do. Not what would help other people. What feels right for you. Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said, if I tell my story and it helps even one kid not be scared like I was scared, then it's worth it. I'll do it. Jack smiled and Sarah saw real pride in his expression. That's my girl. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Speech writing, media training, coordinating with other families who wanted to share their stories. Emma practiced her speech every night, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, reciting the words until they felt natural instead of scripted. Dr. Okonkwo helped her process the anxiety. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be scared. Those feelings don't mean you're weak. They mean you're human. But what if I mess up? What if I forget what to say? Then you say what you remember, or you say what you feel in that moment. There's no wrong way to tell your truth, Emma. The day before the press conference, Sarah got a phone call that made her blood run cold. The number was blocked, but she answered anyway. Mrs. Carter. The voice was smooth, professional, dangerous. My name is Richard Vance. I'm an attorney representing the Morrison family. Sarah's hand tightened on the phone. What do you want? I want to make you an offer. The Morrisons are willing to settle this matter quietly. They'll establish a trust fund for Emma, $250,000 managed by an independent trustee. In exchange, you agree not to pursue civil charges, and Emma doesn't speak at tomorrow's press conference. You're trying to buy our silence. I'm trying to give your daughter financial security. $250,000, Mrs. Carter. That's college paid for. That's a better life. All you have to do is let this go. Let it go. Your client's son stalked my daughter, terrorized her. Would have hurt her if we hadn't stopped him. Travis Morrison has been arrested. He's facing federal charges. Justice is being served. Dragging this out in the media only traumatizes Emma further. Surely you want what's best for your child. What's best for my child is showing her that standing up to bullies matters, that the truth matters, that money can't buy away crimes. Mrs. Carter, please think about this carefully. The Morrison family has significant resources. If you pursue this, they will fight back. They will dig into your life, your history, your finances. They will make things very difficult for you. The offer I'm making is generous, and it expires in 12 hours. Then it can expire. We're not for sale. You're making a mistake. No, Mr. Vance. Your clients made the mistake. We're just making sure everyone knows it. She hung up and immediately called Jack. He arrived 15 minutes later with Vincent and Tommy, all of them looking grim. They tried to bribe you, Jack said. It wasn't a question. $250,000. Told me to keep Emma quiet. That's admission of guilt right there. They wouldn't offer money if they weren't desperate. Jack paced the small living room. They're going to try something tomorrow. I can feel it. They've lost the legal battle, lost the public relations battle, and now they're losing the financial battle. Desperate people do desperate things. Should we cancel? Sarah asked, hating how her voice shook. No, canceling gives them exactly what they want, but we're going to be smart about it. Triple the security. Vet everyone who comes near Emma. Keep her surrounded at all times. Jack, maybe he's right. Maybe I am traumatizing her more by... Stop. Listen to me. Emma wants to do this. She's not being forced. She understands what it means, and she's choosing courage. Don't take that from her because some lawyer tried to scare you. I'm her mother. I'm supposed to protect her. You are protecting her. You're teaching her that her voice matters, that truth matters, that standing up to powerful people who do terrible things matters. Jack knelt in front of Sarah's chair. I've seen a lot of scared parents, Sarah. Some of them protect their kids by hiding them away. Some protect them by teaching them to fight. You're doing both. Emma's going to be okay because of you. Sarah wiped her eyes. What if something happens? Then we'll handle it. Together. The morning of the press conference dawned cold and bright. Emma woke up at 6 a.m. without being called, already tense with anticipation. She put on the outfit they'd picked out together. Nice pants, a purple sweater that matched her jacket, and her leather vest with the Protected by Angels patch. I look weird, Emma said, staring at herself in the mirror. You look brave, Sarah corrected. Can brave people throw up? Because I think I might throw up. Brave people can definitely throw up. But let's try breakfast first. They arrived at the state capitol at 9 a.m. The building was massive, all marble columns and grand staircases. Outside, motorcycles filled every parking space, not hundreds this time, but thousands. Shield of Angels chapters from 23 states had sent representatives, veterans groups, child advocacy organizations, families who'd been through similar ordeals. The crowd was enormous and still growing. Inside, a conference room had been set up for speakers. Emma sat between Sarah and Jack, watching as other families arrived. A mother whose son had been sexually abused by a teacher and the school covered it up. A father whose daughter had been stalked by a coach. A grandmother raising her granddaughter after the parents were too afraid to fight back against their abuser. So many stories, so much pain, so many systems that had failed. They're all like me, Emma whispered. They're all survivors, Jack said, just like you. At 10 a.m., the doors to the main hall opened. Emma walked in and stopped breathing. The room was packed, hundreds of people in seats, more standing in the back, cameras everywhere. The podium stood at the front like a mountain she had to climb. I can't do this, Emma said, her voice barely audible. Sarah squeezed her hand. Yes, you can. What if I forget my speech? Then talk from your heart. It's never failed you yet. Jack bent down. Emma, you've already done the hardest thing. You survived. Everything after that is just telling people about it. You've got this. The program started with Superintendent Wallace speaking about systemic failures in schools. Then a police reform advocate discussed corruption in small-town law enforcement. Then Agent Victoria Chun outlined the federal case against Travis Morrison and the ongoing investigation into the Morrison family's abuse of power. Then it was Emma's turn. Jack walked her to the podium. Someone had brought a step stool so she could reach the microphone. The room went absolutely silent as she climbed up. Emma looked out at hundreds of faces. Cameras. Lights. So many people watching her. Her prepared speech evaporated from her mind completely. Panic fluttered in her chest. Then she saw them, Jack standing just off stage giving her a thumbs up. Sarah in the front row crying proud tears. Tommy, Vincent, Marcus, and Deacon spread throughout the crowd, all of them watching her with expressions that said, "We believe you." Emma took a breath and spoke. My name is Emma Carter, and I'm 7 years old. 3 weeks ago, I was so scared I couldn't sleep. There was a man who followed me to school every day in a black car. He talked to me and asked me questions, and I knew he wanted to hurt me. I told my mom, and she believed me. We told the police, and they didn't believe me. We told my school, and they didn't believe me. Everyone said I was making it up, or being dramatic, or too sensitive. But I wasn't lying. I was just scared. Her voice shook, but she kept going. I didn't know what to do. My mom tried so hard to help, but nobody would listen to her either. I heard her crying one night because she couldn't protect me, and that was the worst feeling in the world. So I did something really scary. I walked by myself in the dark to a diner where I'd seen some bikers, and I asked them for help, and they said yes. They believed me when nobody else would. They protected me when nobody else would. They stood up for me when it would have been easier to walk away. Emma's hands gripped the podium. The man who was following me is in jail now. The people who protected him are being investigated. My school is safer. I can sleep at night. But it took 347 motorcycles and national news coverage for anyone to care. And that's wrong. Kids shouldn't have to become viral videos to be believed. Kids should be believed the first time, every time. The room was so quiet Emma could hear her own heartbeat. If you're a kid watching this, And you're scared like I was scared, please tell someone. Keep telling people until someone believes you. Don't give up. You matter. You're worth protecting. And if the adults in your life won't help, there are people like Shield of Angels who will. You're not alone. She looked directly into the camera. And if you're an adult who has power like a police officer or a principal or a mayor, please don't protect bad people just because they're rich or connected or related to someone important. Protect kids instead. That's your job. Do your job. Emma stepped back from the microphone. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the room erupted. People stood up applauding. Cameras flashed. Someone was crying. Multiple someones. Emma stood frozen on her step stool, overwhelmed by the response. Jack walked over and lifted her down. You did it, kiddo. You were perfect. I forgot my whole speech. What you said was better than any speech. You told the truth, that's all that matters. The press conference continued with other speakers, but Emma had done her part. Sarah took her to a quiet room off the main hall where she could decompress. Emma curled up on a couch and fell asleep almost immediately, emotionally exhausted. She slept through the standing ovation at the end of the program. Slept through the media scramble as reporters tried to get follow-up interviews. Slept through Shield of Angels, officially launching with chapters in 31 states and counting. She woke up 2 hours later to Jack sitting in a chair nearby, watching her with a soft expression. Did I miss anything? Emma asked, her voice muzzy with sleep. Just a few thousand people pledging to protect kids like you. No big deal. Emma sat up, rubbing her eyes. Did I do okay for real? Emma, you changed the world today. That's better than okay. It doesn't feel like I changed anything. I just talked. Sometimes that's all it takes. The right words at the right time from the right person. You were all three. Sarah came in carrying a bottle of water and a sandwich. Baby, you need to eat something. Not hungry. Eat anyway. You've got interviews in an hour. More talking. Just a few. CNN wants 5 minutes. Local news wants a family piece. And there's a woman from Time magazine who wants to do a feature about you and Shield of Angels. Emma groaned. Can't we just go home? Soon. But Emma, this is important. Your story is helping people. Already we've gotten 300 calls to the Shield hotline from families asking for help. 300 kids who might have suffered in silence if they hadn't seen you speak up. That made Emma pause. 300. And counting. You started something that's going to save lives. Emma thought about that while she ate her sandwich. 300 kids. 300 families. 300 stories like hers that might end differently because she'd been brave enough to ask for help. Okay, she said finally. I'll do the interviews. But can Papa Bear stay with me? Wouldn't dream of being anywhere else, Jack said. The interviews were exhausting but manageable. Emma told her story again and again, each time finding it a little easier. The CNN reporter asked thoughtful questions. The local news treated her gently. The Time magazine journalist spent more time talking to Jack and Sarah, filling in the context around Emma's story. By 6 p.m., Emma was done. Finished. Ready to collapse. They walked out of the Capitol building to find the massive crowd had grown even larger. People cheered when they saw Emma. Someone started chanting Shield of Angels, and others picked it up until hundreds of voices echoed off the marble walls. Emma waved tiredly, overwhelmed by the attention. She just wanted her bed and her stuffed elephant, and maybe a week of doing absolutely nothing. Almost there, kiddo, Jack said, guiding her toward the parking area. That's when they saw him. Robert Morrison Sr. The mayor stood near Jack's motorcycle. He was alone. His expensive suit rumpled, his face haggard. He'd aged 20 years in 3 weeks. Mr. Sullivan, he said as they approached. Mrs. Carter, Emma. Jack immediately stepped between Morrison and Emma. You've got about 5 seconds to explain what you're doing here before I call security. I just want to talk, please. You sent your lawyer to threaten us yesterday. I know that was wrong. Everything I've done has been wrong. Morrison's voice broke. I came to apologize. Sarah held Emma close. It's too late for apologies. I know it's too late, but I need to say it anyway. I need you to know that I understand what I've done, what my family's done. Travis is my grandson, and I loved him, but I was so busy protecting him that I didn't see I was protecting a monster. I sacrificed your daughter's safety, and God knows how many other children's safety, to protect my family's reputation. There's no apology big enough for that. Then why are you here? Jack asked coldly. Because I'm resigning. Mayor council position's everything. I'm stepping down, and I'm going to spend whatever time I have left trying to make this right. I've set up a victims fund, $2 million to support families whose children were hurt while I looked the other way. It's not enough. Nothing's enough. But it's what I can do. Emma peeked around Jack. This man had protected Travis, had used his power to silence people, had made it so nobody would help her. She should hate him, but he just looked sad and old and broken. Do you believe me now? Emma asked quietly. About Travis. Morrison's eyes filled with tears. Yes, sweetheart, I believe you. I believe all of you, and I'm so sorry I didn't believe you sooner. Okay, Emma said. Just that. Okay. Morrison nodded, wiped his eyes, and walked away. They watched him go, a man who'd had everything and lost it all because he chose power over truth. You okay? Sarah asked Emma. Yeah, I just feel sad for him. That's because you're a good person, baby. Better than most people deserve. They rode home in comfortable silence, the rumble of Jack's motorcycle, a familiar comfort now. Sarah held Emma tight, feeling her daughter's small body pressed against her back, alive and safe and whole. When they got home, Emma went straight to bed without being asked. Sarah tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and whispered, I'm so proud of you. Love you, Mommy. Love you too, baby. More than anything. Jack was waiting in the living room when Sarah emerged. She's amazing, your kid. She really is. Sarah sat down heavily. Jack, what happens now? Now we keep doing what we've been doing. Emma goes to school. We keep her safe. Shield of Angels grows and helps other kids. Life moves forward. But for how long? When do things go back to normal? Jack smiled sadly. Sarah, normal's gone. This is life now. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe normal needed to change. I'm exhausted. I know, but you did it. You and Emma both. You survived and you fought back and you won. Not many people can say that. Sarah looked at this man who'd been a stranger 4 weeks ago and was now essential. Thank you, Jack, for everything. Thank you for raising a daughter brave enough to ask for help. Made my job a lot easier. He left shortly after promising to be back in the morning for the school run. Sarah sat alone in the quiet apartment listening to Emma breathe deeply in the next room and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Peace. It wouldn't last forever. There would be more challenges, more fights, more days when the trauma caught up with them. But tonight in this moment, they were safe. And sometimes, safe is enough. 6 weeks after the press conference, Emma stood in front of her bathroom mirror, practicing a smile that didn't look forced. Dr. Okonkwo said it was important to acknowledge progress, even small progress. And Emma's latest progress was that she could now walk to school without her stomach hurting. Not without the escort, Jack, and the rotating crew of riders still showed up every morning like clockwork. But the paralyzing fear had dulled to manageable anxiety. That counted as progress. You ready, baby? Sarah called from the kitchen. Yeah, just a second. Emma stared at her reflection one more time. She'd grown in the past 6 weeks, not physically, but in some way she couldn't quite name. She looked the same. Purple jacket backpack, the leather vest she wore every day now. But something in her eyes was different. Harder. Older. Like she'd seen things 7-year-olds shouldn't see and survived anyway. She touched the Protected by Angels patch and whispered, I'm brave. I'm safe. I matter. It was a mantra Dr. Okonkwo taught her. Some days Emma believed it. Other days she was just saying words. Today felt like a believing day. School had changed too. Principal Hicks was gone, replaced by Mrs. Eleanor Davies, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd spent 20 years teaching in inner-city Philadelphia before moving to administration. Her first act was calling an all-school assembly about bullying and announcing that Lincoln Elementary had zero tolerance for harassment of any kind, regardless of who the student's family was. Her second act was creating a student safety committee where kids could report concerns anonymously. Her third act was hiring 2 additional counselors and implementing mandatory training for all staff on recognizing signs of abuse. We failed Emma Carter, Mrs. Davies told the faculty in a meeting that Sarah heard about from friendly teachers. We will never fail another child like that again. If that costs us funding from wealthy families who don't like accountability, so be it. Our job is protecting students, not protecting reputations. 3 families withdrew their children in protest. 15 new families enrolled specifically because of Mrs. Davies's policies. The math worked out in favor of doing the right thing. Emma's classroom had changed too. Tyler was gone. Mason was gone. Brett barely spoke, but Lily Chen had become Emma's best friend, along with Marcus, and a shy girl named Amy who'd admitted during lunch one day that her older brother's friend made her uncomfortable, and she didn't know what to do about it. Tell Mrs. Davies, Emma had said immediately, or call Shield of Angels. They help kids like us. Amy did both. The brother's friend was investigated and turned out to have a record in another county. He was banned from the property, and Amy's brother got mandatory counseling for bringing a predator around his little sister. The system worked the way it was supposed to work finally, but the biggest change wasn't at school. It was in the world beyond Millbrook. Shield of Angels had exploded from a concept into a movement. 31 states had active chapters. They'd helped 47 children in 6 weeks. Kids being stalked, abused, trafficked kids, the system had failed. Bikers showed up, provided protection, connected families with resources, and forced accountability. The model worked because it didn't ask permission. It just acted. Jack spent more time on the phone than on his motorcycle these days, coordinating with chapters, training new volunteers, working with lawyers and social workers, and law enforcement agencies that actually cared. He'd aged in 6 weeks. 2 new lines around his eyes, gray, spreading through his beard. But he never missed Emma's morning escort, not once. It's important, he told Sarah when she suggested he take a break. Not just for Emma, for me. I need to see her walking into that school every day knowing she's safe. Reminds me why we're doing all of this. The trial was coming. Travis Morrison's federal case was scheduled for March, 4 months away. Agent Victoria Chun had built an ironclad prosecution, 3 victim testimonies, the sealed police reports. Kramer provided forensic evidence from Travis's computer showing hundreds of photos of children. Travis's lawyers tried every trick to get charges reduced or dismissed. Nothing worked. The evidence was overwhelming. He's going to prison, Victoria told Sarah during a preparation meeting. Question isn't if it's for how long. With the federal charges and the evidence we have, we're looking at minimum 15 years, possibly 25. And the others. His father, the police chief. Chief Dawson took a plea deal, obstruction charges 5 years. He's testifying against everyone else. Mayor Morrison is being charged with abuse of power and conspiracy to obstruct justice. His trial comes after Travis's. Councilman Robert Morrison Jr. is facing similar charges. We're dismantling the entire corruption network they built. Good, Sarah said, surprised by the venom in her own voice. They deserve worse. They do. But this is what justice looks like. Slow, methodical, thorough. We're making sure every charge sticks. Emma would have to testify. The thought terrified Sarah, but Emma had surprised her. I want to, Emma said when they explained what testifying meant. I want to tell the judge what Travis did. I want him to know I'm not scared of him anymore. Baby, you'll have to answer questions from his lawyers. They might try to make you seem like you're lying or confused. But I'm not lying. And Papa Bear will be there right every second. Then I can do it. Dr. Okonkwo worked with Emma on courtroom preparation, role-playing difficult questions, teaching her how to stay calm under pressure. Emma took it seriously, practicing in front of the mirror the same way she'd practiced her press conference speech. Why do you want to do this? Dr. Okonkwo asked during one session. You could avoid testifying. There's enough evidence without your testimony. Because maybe if Travis sees me and hears me tell what he did, he'll understand he can't hurt kids. And maybe other men like him will see it on the news and understand too. You're trying to prevent future harm. That's a very mature way to think about justice. Papa Bear says justice isn't about revenge. It's about making sure bad things don't keep happening. So I'm doing justice. The world kept watching. Emma's story had become a cultural touchpoint. News outlets did follow-up pieces. Podcasts dissected the case. Schools across the country implemented new safety protocols inspired by what happened in Millbrook. The hashtag #HadBelieveKids trended for 2 weeks straight. But not everyone was supportive. Emma and Sarah received death threats regularly, angry messages from people who thought they'd destroyed the Morrison family unfairly, from people who didn't believe children should have voices, from people who resented the attention. Jack's team vetted every threat, and most were empty bluster. But some were serious enough that FBI protection was assigned to Sarah and Emma for 3 months. "This is insane," Sarah told Jack after finding a particularly vicious message taped to her car windshield. "We're the victims here. Why are we being punished? Because you disrupted power. Power doesn't like being disrupted." Jack looked at the note, crude words threatening Emma's safety. "But Sarah, look at what you've accomplished. 47 kids helped, hundreds of families calling the hotline, an entire movement built around protecting children. That's worth some hate mail from cowards." Is it worth Emma getting threats? Ask her. Sarah did. Emma's answer was immediate, yes. If helping other kids means some mean people say mean things, that's okay. Words can't hurt me, like Travis could have hurt me. Sarah wasn't sure if that was maturity or trauma. Maybe both. Halloween came. Emma dressed as a motorcycle rider, complete with a tiny leather vest and toy bike. She went trick-or-treating with Lily Marcus and Amy, flanked by Jack and Tommy, who wore civilian clothes but fooled nobody. The neighborhood knew who they were. Some houses gave Emma extra candy. Some turned off their porch lights when they saw the escort. "Why don't they like us?" Emma asked, noticing the dark houses. "They're scared," Jack explained. "Change scares people. You changed things. I just asked for help. Sometimes that's the most revolutionary thing you can do." Thanksgiving arrived with unexpected developments. Sarah's mother flew in from Ohio, the first time Emma had seen her grandmother in 2 years. They'd been estranged after Sarah's divorce, but the viral videos had changed something. "I saw my granddaughter on CNN," Grandma Janet said, hugging Emma tight. "Saw her being braver than most adults. Made me realize I've been a coward about family. I'm sorry, baby girl. Grandma should have been here." "You're here now," Emma said simply. They had Thanksgiving dinner at Rosie's Diner because Sarah's apartment was too small. Jack closed the diner to the public for the evening and filled it with people who'd become family. Tommy Vincent Marcus Deacon, their partners and children, Agent Victoria Dr. Okonkwo, Mrs. Davies Lily's family, other SHIELD families who'd traveled to Millbrook for support. 43 people crammed into Rosie's Diner, eating turkey and stuffing and pie, laughing and crying and being grateful for survival. Emma sat between Jack and Sarah, watching the controlled chaos, and felt something she'd almost forgotten: happiness. Not the absence of fear, but actual joy. "What are you thankful for?" Sarah asked during the traditional round robin of gratitude. Emma thought carefully. "I'm thankful I was scared enough to ask for help, and thankful Papa Bear said yes." Jack's eyes got suspiciously wet. "I'm thankful you were brave enough to ask, kiddo." December brought snow and Travis Morrison's preliminary hearing. Emma didn't have to testify yet, but she insisted on attending. Sarah dressed her in her nicest clothes, a blue dress with tights and the leather vest over it. The vest had become armor, a symbol Emma wouldn't abandon even in a courtroom. The federal courthouse in Pittsburgh was intimidating, all marble and flags and security. Emma held Sarah's hand so tight her fingers went numb. Jack walked on Emma's other side, a solid presence that said, "Nobody gets through me to hurt this child." They sat in the gallery while lawyers argued motions and procedures. Emma didn't understand most of it, but she understood when Travis was brought in. He wore an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. He'd lost weight. His greasy hair was gone shaved short for prison. He looked diminished, smaller than the monster who'd haunted her nightmares. Travis's eyes scanned the courtroom and landed on Emma. For a moment, they just stared at each other, predator and prey, except the prey had won, and they both knew it. Emma didn't look away, didn't flinch, just stared back with eyes that said, "I'm not afraid of you anymore." Travis looked away first. "Did you see that?" Emma whispered to Jack. "I saw." You stared him down. He couldn't hold your gaze. Because he knows he lost. That's exactly right. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Multiple motions to dismiss were denied. Travis's lawyers argued for reduced charges, denied. Argued for bail, denied. Travis Morrison would stay in federal custody until trial. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel in her voice, looked directly at Travis when she announced her rulings. "Mr. Morrison, you stand accused of predatory behavior toward multiple children over several years. The evidence suggests a pattern of behavior protected by familial influence and institutional corruption. This court will not be swayed by family name or wealth. You will face justice like any other citizen. Remanded to federal custody, trial date set for March 15th. Travis was led away. Emma watched him go and felt the last piece of fear dissolve. He was locked up. He couldn't hurt her, couldn't hurt anyone. "It's really over," she said wonderingly. "This part is," Victoria said, joining them in the hallway. "But Emma, I need to prepare you. The trial itself will be harder. His lawyers will try to discredit you. They'll suggest you misunderstood his intentions, that you were coached, that you're seeking attention. It's going to be ugly." "Will they be mean to me?" "They'll try. But Judge Richardson doesn't tolerate harassment of child witnesses. She'll protect you, and I'll object to anything inappropriate. You just tell the truth. That's all you have to do." Emma nodded seriously. "I can do that. The truth is easy. It's all the lies that were hard." Christmas came quietly. Sarah couldn't afford much money, was still tight, despite donations that poured into a fund strangers set up for them. But Jack and the Shield family made sure Emma had gifts. Art supplies from Tommy, a guitar lesson package from Deacon, books from Vincent, a custom leather jacket from Marcus that matched her vest perfectly. "It's too much," Sarah protested, overwhelmed by the generosity. "It's family," Jack said. "Family takes care of each other." Emma's gift to Jack was a drawing she'd worked on for weeks, a motorcycle with angel wings, and underneath, in careful lettering, "To Papa Bear, who taught me that asking for help is brave. Love, Emma." Jack hung it in his garage immediately, right next to his Marine Corps medals. The new year arrived with bitter cold and growing anticipation. The trial was 10 weeks away. Emma's nightmares had mostly stopped, but they came back now, stress-induced. She'd wake up crying, and Sarah would find her tangled in blankets, sweating through her pajamas. "I dreamed I was on the witness stand and nobody believed me," Emma sobbed one night. "I kept saying Travis followed me, but everyone laughed and said I was lying and Papa Bear wasn't there, and I was all alone. It was just a dream, baby. That's not going to happen. But what if it does? What if I get up there and mess up and Travis goes free? Emma, look at me. Look at me, baby." Sarah waited until Emma's terrified eyes met hers. "You are not responsible for the verdict. You're only responsible for telling the truth. If you do that, and I know you will, then you did your job. The rest is up to the lawyers and the jury and the judge. But if I mess up, you won't. And even if you stumble or forget something or get nervous, that's okay. You're 7 years old, testifying against a predator. Nobody expects perfection. They just expect honesty." "I'm so scared, Mommy." "I know. But remember what Papa Bear always says. Being scared doesn't mean you're weak." "That's right. Being scared and doing it anyway, that's courage. You've already proven you have more courage than most adults. This is just one more time." February brought a development nobody expected. One of the other victims, a girl named Jessica, who'd been 11 when Travis started following her 3 years ago, came forward wanting to testify. Then another victim, then another. By the end of the week, 6 girls had contacted Victoria offering testimony. "This changes everything," Victoria told Sarah. "With multiple victims testifying to a pattern of behavior, Travis has no defense. His lawyers will have to recommend he take a plea deal." "Would that mean Emma doesn't have to testify?" "Possibly. If he pleads guilty, there's no trial." Sarah's relief was immediate and overwhelming. No trial meant no cross-examination, no defense lawyers attacking Emma's credibility, no trauma of facing Travis in court. "Oh, thank God." But Emma's reaction surprised them both. "I still want to testify," she said when Sarah explained. "Even if there's no trial, I want to give a victim impact statement. I want Travis to hear what he did to me." "Baby, you don't have to. If he pleads guilty, that's justice. You don't have to put yourself through more." "But what about the next girl? What if he gets out of prison someday and does this again? I want him to remember my face, remember my words, remember that I fought back. Maybe that will stop him." Dr. Okonkwo supported Emma's decision. She needs closure, needs to feel like she had agency in the outcome. Letting her give a victim impact statement could be therapeutic. So when Travis Morrison's lawyers approached Victoria with a plea deal guilty on all counts in exchange for a 20-year sentence instead of 25, Victoria included a condition Emma and the other victims would give impact statements before sentencing. The lawyers agreed. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for March 1st. Emma had 2 weeks to prepare what she wanted to say. She wrote it herself, refusing help from anyone. Sat at the kitchen table every night after homework, filling pages with her second-grade handwriting. Sarah only saw fragments when Emma left papers out. "You made me afraid to walk outside. I thought nobody would believe me, and I was right until Papa Bear. You hurt 6 girls that we know about. Maybe more. That's not an accident. That's a choice." The writing seemed to help Emma process. She was calmer after writing sessions, like she was transferring the fear from her body onto paper where it couldn't hurt her anymore. Jack helped too, not with the words, but with the delivery. He coached Emma on speaking clearly, on maintaining eye contact with the judge, instead of Travis on staying calm even when emotions ran high. "Remember, you're not arguing with him. You're informing the court. You're explaining the impact of his actions. That's all. You're just telling your truth one more time." Will he try to apologize? Maybe. Predators often do when they're caught trying to seem remorseful to get lighter sentences. But Emma, whatever he says, it doesn't change what he did. Apologies don't erase trauma. "I know," Dr. Okonkwo explained that. "She said I don't have to forgive him." You don't. Forgiveness is a gift, not an obligation. You give it if and when you're ready, and only if you want to. Nobody else gets to decide that for you. The morning of March 1st came too fast and too slow simultaneously. Emma woke up calm, that eerie calm that happens when you've prepared for something so thoroughly that panic has nowhere left to live. She dressed in her blue dress and leather vest. Sarah braided her hair. Jack picked them up at 7 a.m. Even though the hearing wasn't until 10, nobody wanted to risk traffic or delays. The courtroom was packed, all 6 victims and their families. Press, Shield of Angels, members who'd traveled to show support. Agent Victoria and her team. Dr. Okonkwo, Mrs. Davies from school, Lily and her grandmother. Even Superintendent Wallace attended. Travis sat at the defense table looking nothing like the predator who'd haunted Emma's nightmares. He looked pathetic, broken, already defeated. Judge Richardson called the hearing to order. Travis's lawyers entered the formal guilty plea, 9 counts including stalking minors, attempted abduction, possession of child exploitation materials. With each count, Travis said guilty, in a voice barely audible. "Mr. Morrison," Judge Richardson said when the pleas were complete. "Before I impose sentencing, the court will hear victim impact statements. These young women have the right to address you directly about the harm you've caused. You will listen respectfully. Any disruption and you'll be removed. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," Travis mumbled. The first victim was Jessica, now 14. She read from prepared remarks about the 3 years of therapy, the PTSD diagnosis, the inability to trust adults. Her voice shook but held. The second victim was quieter, barely managing to get through her statement before breaking down crying. Her mother had to finish reading it for her. The third, fourth, and fifth victims each told their stories variations on the same theme. A predator targeting vulnerable children. A system protecting him because of his family name. Years of trauma that might never fully heal. Then it was Emma's turn. She walked to the podium with her folded paper. Jack had offered to stand beside her, but she'd declined. This was something she needed to do alone. Emma unfolded her paper and looked up at Judge Richardson. My name is Emma Carter, and I'm 7 years old. 3 months ago, Travis Morrison started following me to school in his black car. He talked to me and asked me personal questions, and I knew he wanted to hurt me. I knew because I'm a kid, but I'm not stupid. Kids know when adults are dangerous. We just don't always have words to explain it. So when I told the grown-ups in my life that I was scared, I needed them to believe me even though I couldn't explain exactly why I was scared. But they didn't believe me. They said I was dramatic or attention-seeking or too sensitive, and Travis kept following me. Emma's voice was steady, clear. She'd practiced enough that the words flowed naturally. I stopped eating, stopped sleeping, started checking windows all the time. I heard my mom crying because she couldn't protect me. That was the worst part, not Travis following me, but watching my mom break because the system failed us. So I did something that probably wasn't smart, but it was brave. I walked to a diner by myself in the dark, and I asked strangers for help. And they said yes. They believed me when nobody else would. They protected me when they didn't have to. They proved that regular people can be heroes when systems fail. She looked directly at Travis for the first time. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Travis Morrison, you tried to hurt me, and you hurt other girls. You made choices every single day to hunt children. That's evil. I don't know if you can change or if you're sorry for real or if you're just sorry you got caught. But I know I'm not scared of you anymore. You're just a sad man who made terrible choices and now you have to face consequences. I hope prison teaches you that kids aren't things you can hunt. We're people who deserve safety and respect, and adults who believe us. Emma took a breath. This next part she hadn't shown anyone, not even Sarah. But I also want to say thank you. Confusion rippled through the courtroom. Thank you for following me because it made me find Papa Bear and Shield of Angels. Thank you for being so obviously dangerous that even though adults didn't believe me at first, they eventually couldn't ignore it. Thank you for getting caught because now 6 girls got justice, and however many future girls won't be victims because you're in prison. You meant to destroy me. Instead, you helped me find my voice and my courage and my family. So thank you, Travis Morrison, for accidentally making me stronger. Emma folded her paper and walked back to her seat. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of people crying. Judge Richardson wiped her own eyes before speaking. Miss Carter, that was incredibly powerful. Thank you for your courage. She turned to Travis. Mr. Morrison, you've heard from 6 of your victims. 6 children whose lives you've damaged possibly irreparably. Children who will carry the trauma of your actions for years, maybe forever. You come from a family of wealth and privilege. You had every advantage, and you chose to use those advantages to prey on the vulnerable. That is particularly reprehensible. Travis's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client would like to address the court. No. Judge Richardson interrupted. Mr. Morrison forfeited his right to speak when he chose to plead guilty rather than testify. These victims have spoken. I will now impose sentence. She picked up her gavel. Travis Morrison, you are hereby sentenced to 20 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for the first 15 years. Upon release, you will register as a sex offender for life and be subject to monitoring. You are prohibited from any contact with minors outside of supervised family events. Any violation will result in immediate return to custody. She brought the gavel down. Court is adjourned. Travis was led away. He tried to look back at the courtroom once, but a marshal blocked his view. Then he was gone. Emma sat very still, processing. 20 years. By the time Travis got out, she'd be 27, an adult with a life he couldn't touch. You did it, Sarah whispered, pulling Emma close. Baby, you were perfect. I meant what I said about thank you. Is that weird? No, it's healing. You took something terrible and found meaning in it. That's not weird. That's survival. Jack lifted Emma up into a bear hug. Proud of you, kiddo. So damn proud. Did I do good? You did great. Best victim impact statement I've ever heard, and I've heard a lot of them. The courthouse steps were crowded with press. Emma wasn't required to speak to them, but she chose to one final time. My name is Emma Carter, and I'm 7 years old. Today, Travis Morrison got 20 years in prison for hurting me and other kids. I'm happy about that. But I'm more happy that there are people like Shield of Angels who protect kids when systems fail. If you're a kid being hurt or scared, please tell someone. Keep telling people until someone believes you. We deserve to be believed. We deserve to be safe. And if grown-ups won't protect us, we have to protect each other. Thank you. She stepped back from the microphones. Jack guided her through the crowd to his motorcycle. They rode home, Sarah, Emma, and 20 SHIELD members forming a protective convoy around them. Life didn't immediately return to normal because normal didn't exist anymore. This was the new normal, living in the aftermath of trauma, rebuilding a life that had been shattered, learning how to be okay again. Emma continued therapy, continued school, continued being a kid who'd seen too much but refused to let it destroy her. Some days were hard. Some days she cried for reasons she couldn't explain. Some days she was angry at everyone at Travis, at the adults who failed her, at the universe for making her go through this. But some days were good. Days when she laughed with Lily. Days when she learned a new guitar chord from Deacon. Days when she painted pictures that didn't include black cars or fear. Days when she was just 7, then 8, then 9, growing up surrounded by people who loved her. Shield of Angels grew too. Within a year, they'd helped over 300 children. The model spread internationally, chapters formed in Canada, the UK, Australia. The message was simple and powerful. Protect children first, ask questions later, force accountability always. Jack eventually stepped back from daily operations, training younger members to run regional chapters. But he never stopped checking in on Emma. Not when she turned 8, not when she turned 10, not when she graduated elementary school and started middle school and the leather vest got too small, so he bought her a new one. "You're stuck with me, kiddo," Jack told her on her 13th birthday. "I know I'm not family by blood." "You're family where it counts," Emma interrupted. "You're the person who showed up when nobody else would. That makes you family forever." Sarah watched them together, this grizzled Marine and her daughter, who'd somehow become inseparable, and felt grateful for a dawn morning 3 years ago, when desperation sent Emma to a diner full of strangers. The Morrison family never recovered. Mayor Morrison served 4 years for corruption. Chief Dawson served his full 5. Councilman Morrison Jr. lost everything and moved to another state. Travis sat in federal prison where other inmates knew what he'd done and made sure he paid for it every single day. Principal Hicks never worked in education again. Officer Kramer became a whistleblower advocate, working with SHIELD to train law enforcement on believing victims. Superintendent Wallace retired but stayed active in child protection reform. And Emma grew up. She learned that trauma doesn't define you unless you let it. She learned that asking for help is strength, not weakness. She learned that one person's courage can start a movement that changes the world. On her 18th birthday, Emma got her motorcycle license. Jack taught her to ride on his old Harley, the same bike that had carried her to school that first terrifying morning. She was good at it, natural, confident, unafraid. "You ready for your first solo ride?" Jack asked. "I've been ready for years. You're the one who made me wait." "Had to make sure you were safe." "Papa Bear, I've been safe since the day I walked into Rosie's diner and met you." Emma rode through Millbrook on her own bike, feeling the wind and the freedom and the power of motion. She rode past Lincoln Elementary, where Mrs. Davies still ran things with compassion and accountability. Past the courthouse where she'd faced Travis. Past her old apartment building where she'd been so scared. She wasn't that scared little girl anymore. She was Emma Carter, co-founder of Shield of Angels, advocate for children's rights, survivor who'd turned trauma into purpose. She rode until the sun set, then headed back to Rosie's diner, where Jack waited with coffee and the same booth where everything changed. "How'd it feel?" he asked when she walked in. "Like flying. Like freedom. Like winning." "Good. That's exactly what it should feel like." They sat together in comfortable silence. This man who'd saved her life by simply believing her. This girl who'd saved herself by being brave enough to ask. Emma looked at Jack and said what she'd been saving for this moment. "Thank you, Papa Bear, for everything, for showing up, for believing me, for teaching me that the world has more good people than bad ones, for proving that strangers can become family, for saving my life." Jack's eyes were suspiciously wet. "You saved your own life, kiddo. I just helped you do it." "Then thank you for helping. Thank you for being there every single day since that morning. Thank you for loving me like a daughter when you didn't have to." "It was never about having to. It was about getting to. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Emma Carter. You reminded me why everything matters." Outside, motorcycles lined the street, SHIELD members who'd come for Emma's birthday party. Hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by one little girl's courage. People who'd learned that sometimes the greatest act of heroism is simply showing up when you're needed. Emma looked at them through the diner window and thought about all the children who'd been saved because she'd been brave enough to walk through fear and ask for help, or thought about the hundreds of thousands of kids who'd heard her story and found their own courage to speak up. Thought about the systems that had changed, the laws that had been reformed, the cultural shift toward believing children that started with 3 words, "I need help." She turned back to Jack, this man who'd become her father in all the ways that mattered, and smiled. "We did good, didn't we?" "Yeah, kiddo, we did real good." And in that moment, in that diner where everything began, Emma Carter understood the most important truth of her life. Asking for help didn't make her weak. It made her revolutionary. And being believed didn't just save her life. It changed the world.